About 1,000 years ago, the demonic beasts were ruled by a dragon. He was at the top and was called the demon god. The demon god with incredible ambition suddenly wreaked havoc. He led his army of magical beasts and broke into the human world. His greed had no bounds. He wanted to devour every corner of the world in endless darkness. Humanity had to face destruction. But through this event, people were able to unlock their potential. During the Age of Enlightenment, some individuals showed their ability in that they were able to control demonic beasts, and they were dubbed the Beast Tamers. Their powers were so strong that it gave them advantages, and they controlled every action of the demon. Message: a demonic beast was destroyed in a residential area of Qingfeng City. The affected demonic beast had crashed into a residential building, and they urgently needed medical attention. It was Xiao Sinyu. He was in the 3rd grade of CNN Middle School, and was at the 1st level. It was a very frightening sight. Not everyone could mentally cope with what they saw. The terrifying demonic beast was unconscious, and was completely oozing red liquid. This liquid had accidentally splashed directly onto its face. Xiao Sinyu was right in the epicenter of events. He was caught in the very chaos that the demonic god had created. He was simply terrified of what was happening. At the very beginning of the chaos, when heaven and earth had not yet separated, he had created a pact with red liquid and summoned spirits from the void. He swore on his red liquid and ordered them to obey his commands. It was the same flaming lion. The beast was confirmed destroyed. Human survivors were found in the chaos, and the victims didn't seem to be at the epicenter of events. A girl suddenly appeared in front of him, and she apologized for the trouble they had caused. It was Su Rian. She was the headmaster of Qinglong Academy, and she informed him that the academy would be personally responsible for all the damage and would definitely be compensated, handing over her business card. He took the card and was completely shocked by what was happening. After all, these were the same beast tamers from Qinglong Academy. She sat on her beast, and after saying goodbye until the next time she met him, she vanished away. In their world, absolutely everyone in their world dreamed of becoming a beast tamer, and this dream couldn't help but affect him as well. Xiao Sinyu couldn't afford to buy a beast tamer because he didn't have the money to do so, and in order to become one, he needed to pass the beast tamer exam. But if he didn't, he definitely couldn't protect anyone. Suddenly, a small beast appeared in front of him out of nowhere. It was obviously very cute and friendly. It was still very small and wanted to play, so it began to lick Xiao Sinyu. Xiao Sinyu was obviously not prepared for this. He couldn't find any explanation as to how he had gotten here. Could it be that he had descended with the demonic god directly from the heavens? But after a moment, he remembered that there was information about a dog-like creature in the textbooks. Its bloodline was quite weak and didn't require spiritual power. This was a plus for Xiao Sinyu because with this, he might be able to take care of it. He was insanely happy about this chance because of this beast, he might be able to become a beast tamer. But the beast tamer exam would start in 3 days, and he probably wouldn't have enough time to prepare for it. But he decided to try anyway, and was very happy that now he had this baby. The events moved to the beast tamer store. In Xiao Sinyu's mind, he still had the thought of giving this puppy to someone who could actually afford to take care of it, because he felt that the puppy would have absolutely no future around him. Suddenly, a salesman came out of the store, and he was very surprised to see Xiao Sinyu outside his store so early. Xiao Sinyu decided to offer the salesman to take the animal away. As soon as he saw the animal, he indignantly asked to take the puppy without pedigree away from his store. Xiao Sinyu thought he was being very rude and informed him that if he didn't want it, he could just politely say so. And now Xiao Sinyu realized that any person would not want to buy him because he had nothing in his status, especially the path of evolution. Just as suddenly, Xiao Sinyu was illuminated by a bright light, and a system window appeared in front of him that had complete information about the puppy. Xiao Sinyu was very surprised when the system panel appeared in front of him. He decided to wipe his eyes and look at everything again because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. As it turned out, it was clearly not an easy puppy, and for some reason, its evolutionary path was hidden. Xiao Sinyu's mind was filled with a lot of questions. While he was busy doing that, someone was peeking at him. And as it turned out, no one could see this panel except him. It was also hidden. Suddenly, the person who was watching approached him. It was the son of the richest man in Qifeng City. He remembered very well that Xiao Sinyu wasn't going to pass the exam just because he didn't have a pet. He decided to bend down and take a look at the beast. He was very surprised to see that Xiao Sinyu was able to get himself a beast. When he realized that it was a hound, he was furious. Xiao Sinyu immediately grabbed the puppy and ran away, asking him to stay away. He realized that Lina was telling the truth, and Xiao Sinyu really wasn't going to pass the exam. This situation made him laugh a lot because he was sure that even if Xiao Sinyu tried, he would fail this exam 100%. Hearing Lina's name, Xiao Sinyu was very much alarmed. After all, he had reported that his ex-girlfriend had recently been with him. Suddenly, Lina appeared out of nowhere, and she could not understand where her chosen one had gone. But he said that he saw an old acquaintance and decided to say hello to him. and she noticed Xiao Xinhua, and it was obvious from her face that she was very uncomfortable and couldn't understand why this was happening. Because she shouldn't care about Xiao Xinhu's opinion. How could he even come here with this low-ranked dog? Xiao Xinhu was very hurt that she had forgotten how he had helped her get up from the bottom. He was very angry, and didn't care who he was associating his life with. If she was interested in rich fools, that was clearly her choice. These words really infuriated the rich son, and he was ready to crush Xiao Xinhua in the exam. This situation only amused him, and mocking them, Xiao Xinhu walked out of there. Who even dared to say that an assault hound was a useless animal? Xiao Xinhu decided not to give up and prove that they had a future. And so 3 days later, they were in Jilin Square. The hostess announced that the National Beast Tamer exam would soon begin, and all those participating should go to their seats. The people who were there were very surprised to see Xiao Xinhua there, because they were sure that he was definitely not going to participate because he didn't have a beast. Where would he get the money from? He was also somehow registered at the Qinglong Academy. People thought he was a loser. How could he even be a member of one of the best academies in their nation? Xiao Xinhu was determined to win. He was going to prove to everyone that he was clearly capable of many things. He turned to the teacher to inform him that he had come to take the exam. It was teacher Chen Qianyang, and In was in the admissions office of Qinglong Academy. He required the name of the candidate. He introduced himself and said that he had come to take the Beast Tamer exam. Xiao Xinhu, as it turned out, was the only student from Qifeng County who had applied to their academy. Once again, this guy appeared in Xiao Xinhu's path and reported that he was very brave since he had decided to apply for the exam. He said that in the past 5 years, only 8 students had applied from his neighborhood. And as it turned out, none of them had passed this exam. This guy clearly couldn't believe that Xiao Xinhu would be able to squeeze through this exam. But if he could still pass it, the rich son would be willing to kneel down and call him daddy. Xiao Xinhu ordered him to clear his path and be ready to fulfill his declaration. This infuriated the rich boy very much. But regardless, Xiao Xinhu approached the teacher and informed him that he was ready to start the test. But before he started, the teacher decided to warn him about something. The Qinglong Academy entrance exam would be very difficult, and if he suddenly failed it, he would never have the chance to apply to any of the existing academies again. Xiao Xinhu was well aware of the consequences of losing, and despite that, he was ready to start the exam. The first test was the spiritual power test. And upon touching the magic ball, Xiao Xinhu's spiritual strength amounted to 316. This guy once again made Xiao Xinhu look like a laughing stock. He was certain that he wasn't even worth the minimum of the academy. The teacher seemed to be disappointed, for he had clearly thought that Xiao Xinhu would be an excellent and confident expert. Through this, he invited the next student to take the test. But suddenly, someone noticed that Xiao Xinhu's spiritual power began to change drastically. It was already at the 621st level. And just a second later, his spirituality exceeded the number 711. This was inexplicable, and the people present thought that the spirit power meter was broken. And after a moment, the counting stopped. Xiao Xinhu's spirituality level number had reached 1028. The teacher was completely shocked by what was happening. This really infuriated everyone present, because no one could believe that Xiao Xinhu was actually capable of doing anything. A student's spirit power determined how many beasts a beast tamer could imprison. Every 100 points was equal to 1 beast, and the number 1028 points meant that Xiao Xinhu had great potential, and he could become a 10-star beast taming master. Teacher was completely shocked by what he saw. He knew very well that he was now dealing with a future 10-star beast taming master. It was very rare to actually see him. In the past few decades, there were very few of them in the dragon realm. Therefore, they should definitely cherish such potential. It looked like the Dragon Kingdom had found its next master and genius. Xiao Xinhu's spiritual strength is 1028 points. Last year, there was a girl named Yining Shuang, and her spiritual strength was 1030 points. And what a surprise it was that Xiao Xinhu would be able to reach such a level. His ex-girlfriend and her chosen one were furious, but they knew that this was far from the end. There is another test, and it lies in the student's pet bloodline. In their opinion, he would definitely not be able to pass it. Mr. Chen prepared to announce the start of the second test, but suddenly one of the students stopped him. It seems there was a minor error with the measurement of his spirituality power. This student's real score is 1032 points. Xiao Xinhu's score actually exceeded that of last year's candidate. This became a big problem, and the teacher asked his assistant to keep this malfunction a secret and not tell anyone. He had no choice, and the assistant had to keep silent about it. The teacher announced the beginning of the next test. It consisted of manifesting Xiao Xinhu's beast bloodline. He asked Xiao Xinhu to summon his beast, and he fulfilled the teacher's command with burning eyes. Finally, it was Blackfang's turn. A moment later, the beast's strong paws descended to the ground right in front of the teacher. Xiao Xinhu summoned his beast. It was a very fairy-like moment. Everyone around them held their breath and eagerly waited for further developments. A moment later, The puppy appeared and sprawled like a child on the ground. He was very cute and helpless. The people in the crowd knew very well that this beast had a low pedigree. They began to take great offense at Xiao Sinyu's choice because none of them would ever take him as their beast. The teacher explained that besides the bloodline of the beast, the quality of its red liquid also meant a lot, because this factor could limit an animal tamer in the future. The teacher was very sad to realize that Xiao Sinyu's beast had low-quality red liquid. He was very sorry, but he had to inform Xiao Sinyu that he was unable to pass the second trial because of his beast. Suddenly, someone from the crowd paid attention to what was going on. They seemed to have seen something interesting that made them dare to interrupt the teacher's speech. And as suddenly from a cute puppy sharply grew a powerful beast, all present were in complete shock from what they saw. And after such a thing, he definitely stopped looking like a Hellhound, because at the very least, they didn't have any evolution. Pointing his sensor at the beast, a system panel popped up in front of the teacher. It contained all the information about the animal, and seeing that it had the second level of evolution, the teacher was completely confused. He couldn't believe his eyes that this was actually happening at the moment. Looking at Xiao Sinyu, he actually realized that this guy was really something special. The teacher announced the results of the exam, and it went well. Xiao Sinyu was accepted into Qinglong Academy. The couple couldn't believe that Xiao Sinyu had actually managed to pass the exam and get into the academy. And feeling humiliated, they decided to leave the place. Suddenly, they were suddenly called out by Xiao Sinyu. He decided to remind the rich kid that he was obligated to say goodbye to his daddy. This really pissed him off. He clearly had no intention of honoring his earlier word. He didn't care at all about what he had promised earlier, because he clearly wasn't used to being humiliated. This made Xiao Sinyu very angry, and he called out to his beast with a vicious look. The kid was very scared, and didn't know what to expect from Xiao Sinyu in the future. This beast's strength was very powerful. It was easily able to tip the kid to the ground and crush him with its strong paw. The guy was simply furious at what was happening. There was nothing left for him but to fulfill his earlier words. And through his teeth, he said, "Daddy." Xiao Sinyu turned around and said that he didn't have a son like this freak, while ordering him to immediately disappear from here. Lena suddenly changed her mind and ran to him and told him that she wanted them to be together because she felt that her feelings for Xiao Sinyu had changed a lot. She was sure that he would be happy to give her a chance. But luckily that didn't happen, and with his head held high, Xiao Sinyu let her know that he clearly wasn't going to go back in time, especially not with a lowly girl like her. She fell to her knees and started begging him for forgiveness, but he didn't care about her, and all she had to do was stare at the man walking away. He pulled out his phone to tell his sister the good news about his enrollment in Qinglong Academy. She picked up the phone, and he greeted her. He was preparing to tell her the great news. And suddenly the connection cut off, and he couldn't hear anything on the other end of the phone. The good news seems to have to wait. But he didn't understand why it had happened at all. The events had moved right to the outskirts of Qifeng City, closer to the farmer's market. It was some kind of chaos. Someone from the crowd reported that a very huge number of monsters had invaded their land, and one should run away from there as soon as possible. One woman shouting from the crowd couldn't find her small child in the midst of it all. And after a moment, the child was in the arms of that screaming mother. She hugged her very tightly and hid her in her tender arms, but the baby was very frightened. Suddenly a huge shadow appeared right above them. The girl was very much afraid for her life, and for the life of her little daughter. She didn't know what to do next. It was a very huge monster, and it seems that they were waiting for a very sad end, because she could not find any way out of the situation. Xiao Sinyu was confused. He couldn't understand what had happened at all. It was just chaos all around. People were very scared and screaming for help. But what worried him at the moment was the whereabouts of his sister. He was very worried about her, and did not know how he would be able to find her in this epicenter of events. And turning around, he saw a huge monster that was about to attack a woman with a child. It turned out to be his sister, and quickly reacting, he and his beast rushed to their aid. Red liquid started pouring from his eyes again, and he couldn't understand why this was happening to him again. The system panel abruptly appeared in front of him, and showed the available skills of his beast. He had to make a decision whether to use them or not. He immediately started to click on the button to use all the available skills, because his sister's future depended on it. But for some reason the system blocked him from using the skills, or they just didn't work. He was furious and couldn't understand why this was happening. The demonic beast was already almost at its target. It only had a few centimeters left for it to destroy them. They were very scared. They clearly didn't want this kind of end to their lives. Qinglong Academy had been renamed Blue Dragon Academy. Xiao Sinyu was very scared, and he didn't understand why this was happening to him. Suddenly, he remembered that the people from the Blue Dragon Academy had recited some kind of spell last time. He had no choice but to try this chance too. At the beginning of the chaos before heaven and earth are divided, he clones his red liquid and summons spirits from the void. And it seems a miracle happened, and he succeeded. The beast's body began to reincarnate into a strong and powerful one. Xiao Sinyu swore by his red liquid, and was able to perform this spell. He ordered the beast to listen only to his commands, and the first command sounded, "Go, it's time to save them!" The beast moved straight towards the huge demon. It was going to have to fight in a battle with the monster for the lives of each of them. A moment later, the monster immobilized on the ground, and it had no signs of life left. Did Xiao Xinyu really manage to defeat this terrifying demon? He was shocked at the real strength of the beast-taming master. He realized that his sister was still near the monster's body. So as soon as possible, he rushed to help them. He ran up to them to make sure they were all right. They were both happy to finally see each other. The sister was completely shocked at what her brother had done. Xiao Xinyu finally took a moment to tell his sister the good news. On this day, he had passed the Azure Dragon Academy exam, and now he could control beasts just like the other students. As a small beast suddenly jumped right into Xiao Xinyu's arms, his sister was completely shocked by what she saw. And accepting it into his embrace, he introduced his beast to his sister. Specifically now, the puppy looked very cute, and its name was Hellwolf, although you couldn't tell from its appearance. The humans were in complete shock at what they saw. Had the demon really been destroyed? Xiao Xinyu and his sister reported with pride on their faces that the monster had indeed been destroyed, and there was no longer any danger to humans. Xiao Xinyu and his beast had displayed their skills to the best of their ability. Just as suddenly, the very mother of the girl who had lost her during the danger ran out from the crowd. She was very happy to see her child alive and unharmed. The little girl was very happy to finally hug her mom. She was still scared and cried as soon as she saw her. The woman thanked the beast-taming master for being able to save her daughter. Xiao Xinyu, along with his sister, decided to approach the monster and see if he had actually succeeded. A system panel popped up in front of him and awarded him the monster's core. He was very surprised, but on the other hand, he was happy because he had gotten the initial stage of the poison core. He threw this core directly to his beast, and the beast was overjoyed, because even the initial core could improve his beast's evolution. The terrifying monster was finally destroyed, and everyone could relax. All the people who were there began to thank Xiao Xinyu, because it was only because of him that they had survived now. He was their true hero. Suddenly, the little girl he had saved from the monster earlier came up to him from the crowd and told him that she wanted to be like him. He assured her that she had everything ahead of her, and that she would definitely reach some heights in the future. The sun had already completely set behind the horizon. It was completely dark, and only a bright month illuminated the expanse of the sky. Xiao Xinyu had long since peacefully slept in his bed. He was very tired during the day, so he fell asleep very quickly. And for some unknown reason, Xiao Xinyu's sister was standing at his bedside. She was watching him very intently. Suddenly, her eyes suddenly shone with a bright blue light. And because of that, she saw a bright blue seal on Xiao Xinyu's back, with the features of a beast on it. She spoke to someone on the phone, and told him that the Dragon King's seal was still in place. Sister needed to find out why the dragon curse was still on Xiao Xinyu's body and affecting him. She shouted furiously at someone on the phone. She was very agitated because she couldn't understand why Xiao Xinyu still had the ability to contract with the beast. For some reason, she didn't see any sense in it. On the other side of the tube, a voice informed her that it was most likely his destiny, and that was why she should keep her eyes on him and watch Xiao Xinyu's every move. She agreed with the speaker on the phone and promised that she would fulfill this assignment. She simply must keep an eye on Xiao Xinyu. But who is this unknown person with whom she is discussing matters about Xiao Xinyu's life? Further developments will only get more interesting. The events take place at the railroad station of Qifeng City. It was Xiao Xinyu's relatives, and they tried to stick him with a basket of Kachina eggs and some money. They knew that he loved these eggs very much as a child. He waved to them and asked them not to see him off again, because as soon as he returned, he would come to visit him in person. The train arrived at the colony, and he and his sister went inside and sat down on their seats. After an hour in the carriage, they announced that in a few minutes there might be animals on the railroad tracks, and because of this, there might be a slight fluctuation of the train. And after a few minutes, as it turned out, they were able to successfully pass the unsafe section of the railroad, and they could safely continue on their way. Xiao Xinyu was overjoyed that they had managed to pass the unsafe section of road without incident. They were on their way to Longyan City. His sister reminded him that he would be going to school very soon, so he should study hard. Suddenly, the train started to shake very violently. None of the passengers could not understand what was happening now at all. And suddenly, the explanation did not wait long. As it turned out, a group of beasts known as the three-eyed giant monkeys had been spotted ahead. Everyone had to protect their belongings and themselves. The people were very frightened because they thought that everything was behind them, and the plot had passed quietly. They were just terrified because they didn't realize what they had to do now, because they were hoping that someone present would be able to take over. One of the monkeys had managed to break through the roof of the train and was preparing to attack at any second. The people were very scared and had no choice but to run away because the beasts had already caught up with them. Xiao Xinyu turned to his sister and asked her to hide somewhere and stay put. She looked at him with an incomprehensible look because she didn't understand what her brother was going to do. She was very worried about her brother and didn't want him to risk his life. A moment later, the monkey was right above Xiao Xian. It was very big and scary. But it couldn't scare Xiao Xinyu at all. Suddenly, some unknown beast struck right at the monkey, and Xiao Xinyu heard someone's voice ordering him to get out of here. It was the daughter of the president of the Sky Guild, Qin Yanran. She had unleashed her beast to protect and help everyone present. And in her opinion, Xiao Xinyu had to leave because he didn't want to die at the hands of the monkeys. No one knew what her superpowers were, but she was probably strong enough. She used the power of the Thunder Flash. When Xiao Xinyu saw this, he was completely shocked at what was happening. Suddenly, Xiao Xinyu saw a system panel that had all the information about her and her animal. It was a three-tailed thunder fox, and besides it, Qin Yanran had a very powerful spear. He was shocked by the arsenal he saw and was very surprised that the daughter of the guild president himself had come to help him. Some of the residents were madly happy that the beast tamer had come to their rescue and they would be saved. Xiao Xinyu's reaction didn't need to wait either. He couldn't believe that they would actually be saved. All the people were very much frightened, but Xiao Xinyu gathered courage and decided that all the residents should urgently leave the train carriage. Suddenly, a whole pack of mad monkeys appeared in front of them. They were very angry and were going to tear each person into small pieces. Xiao Xinyu realized that the girl would not be able to deal with so many beasts by herself. Summoning his beast, he made a decision that they should definitely help her. She was simply terrified because she obviously didn't expect that there would be so many wild beasts here. And seeing Xiao Xinyu rushing to help her, she asked him to be very careful. He summoned his wolf and used one of his abilities. Xiao Xinyu was completely confident in his strength and knew very well that the monkeys would obviously not be able to escape from him. And with a single movement of his hand, he managed to captivate the monkeys with strong and sturdy chains. And seeing how he easily disposed of the animals, Qin Yanran was very surprised that Xiao Xinyu was also a beast tamer. She thanked Xiao Xinyu for his help, to which he said that any beast tamer would have helped his ally in such a situation. Suddenly, Xiao Xinyu noticed something, and he couldn't find an explanation for it. As it later turned out, the system panel popped up and her beast became very weak and depressed. Lately, the girl's beast had become very tired after fighting with wild animals. Its body became very sluggish, and it felt as if it couldn't recover. She was shocked and didn't understand how Xiao Xinyu knew all the information about her beast. And he knew that he obviously shouldn't tell her that he could see her system panel, and had to lie that he had read about it in a guild book earlier. She thanked him for the information because she had noticed the strange behavior of the animal earlier, but didn't understand what was going on with it. They hugged, and from then on, she called him her little brother. Xiao Xinyu's real sister was watching from behind, and it looked like she clearly didn't like it and was very angry. She stood between them and informed them that Xiao Xinyu was not just a younger brother. Xiao Xinyu didn't understand the action she was doing. And hugging him tightly, she announced that he was her younger brother. Qin Yanran looked at her with a suspicious look. And after a moment, she was right behind Xiao Xinyu and questioned her if she really thought so. She decided that from now on he would be her brother too, but Xiao Xinyu's real sister didn't seem to like this decision very much. And they got into a very strong conflict. They started pushing him so hard to their sides that it felt like they could tear him in two. He was completely shocked by what was happening and tried every possible way to stop them. The events moved to the central plaza of the Azure Dragon Academy. The Dean of Education of the Academy, Lin Qian, welcomed all the new students and was happy to see the newcomers in their academy. He asked all the students to be patient because the academy principal wasn't there yet and needed to wait for him. After Xiao Xinyu said goodbye to Sister Qin, he arrived at the academy and was enrolled without any problems. Suddenly, a huge beast appeared out of nowhere. It was a white lion, and was very strong and beautiful. Most of the students realized where the lion came from. And as soon as the rest of the students saw the purple flaming lion, they realized that Principal Su was already there. This really excited all the freshmen, and they were insanely happy to finally see her. Her beast was as powerful as she was. She descended to the ground directly to her new students. Her assistant asked her to say a few words to the new students who had joined her academy. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked when he saw her. Her face seemed very familiar, and he was sure that he had seen her before. This was the woman who had fought the demon dragon earlier and saved him from the monster. Xiao Xinyu clearly did not expect that she would turn out to be the principal of the Azure Dragon Academy. She picked up the microphone and congratulated all the new students for entering the Azure Dragon Academy. She continued her speech and said that she didn't care whether they came from a rich family or a poor family. In the Azure Dragon Academy, all students would be required to follow all the rules that she had previously made, and no less important was rule number 8. The students were completely unaware of what was implied in rule number 8. She explained that rule number 8 is one of the most important rules. It is that if there is a conflict between students, it does not matter who is right and who is wrong. There is a ring to resolve the conflict, and they will have to resolve the conflict with a duel in the ring. and after that the loser will have to apologize to the winner. Rule number 8 was indeed cruel. But in fact, thanks to him can prevent the bullying of the rich over the poor, and entering her academy all become equal. And that was why even ordinary students could do justice to others. It had been about 2 hours since the welcome party. One of the students couldn't believe that he would be studying with Xiao Xian himself. Many already knew that his spiritual strength was equal to that of the best master last year. The instructor asked the students to calm down so that he could finally begin the lesson. With his whole appearance, he showed that he clearly didn't like the students' behavior very much. And finally, when everyone had calmed down, he could start his lesson. Many of the boys were ready to follow him around. Every one of them really wanted to be like Xiao Xinyu. As soon as the teacher turned back to the blackboard, some of them tried to talk to Xiao Xinyu again. The teacher, clearly not expecting this, once again asked them to be quiet and pay attention to the blackboard. He had been appointed as their class teacher and hoped that each of the students would be able to get something useful and learn something new at the Azure Dragon Academy. His name was Chen Qinyan, and he was the one who took the exam of most of the students who had entered. He asked them to open the book, and they would start with the first chapter, which explained the whole theory of the companion beasts. The strength of the ultimate beast is basically determined in 2 ways. One is by determining the evolution of the beast itself. There are lower and higher stages of evolution, and they include the initial form, the mature form, the full form, and the transcendent form. Well, the highest form is the form of the king of beasts. It is the strongest and most powerful. Now, the second factor is the quality of the beast's red liquid. Ancestral lines, just like evolution, exist in 2 cases, the lowest and the highest. And accordingly, the higher quality of the red liquid has an overwhelming effect on the lower category. And on top of that, the attributes of beasts can also create a suppressive effect. For example, there are 5 common elemental attributes such as metal, water, fire, earth, and wood, and they follow a cycle of universal suppression. Wood over earth, earth over water, pitch over fire, fire over metal, and metal over wood. These are the most basic 5 attributes, and of course, there are most of the others, but the dean decided not to list all the possible ones because it would take too long. Suddenly everyone in the classroom heard a heavy snoring sound. They saw such a funny picture. Xiao Xinyu was lying on his desk and apparently fell asleep by accident. The teacher was very angry and threw something at him to wake him up. He didn't accept the fact that in the first lecture in his class someone dared to fall asleep. So he decided to ask Xiao Xian a trick question. He was very curious to hear the answer to what the heavenly demon's real weakness was. And if he couldn't answer the question, then Xiao Xinyu should immediately get up and leave the office building. Xiao Xinyu probably pissed off the teacher very much. The teacher was still waiting for Xiao Xinyu's answer. He must have thought that he obviously couldn't answer such a question. But Xiao Xinyu stood up and defied his expectations and gave a perfect answer to the teacher's question. Her weak point is the poison in the pouch that is under her abdomen. And the teacher asked him another provocative question. Xiao Xinyu had to answer where ice crocodiles usually reside. Xiao Xinyu also easily answered this question and said that they often live in the Frostfall Lake regions of the Southern Dragon Realm in the cold pools under the Kunlun Glacier. All the students who were sitting nearby were very surprised because once again Xiao Xinyu had impressed them with his thoughts and knowledge. Xiao Xinyu's answers amazed the teacher, and he decided to ask one last question. If he encounters a sky-ripping tiger in the wilderness, what will he have to do? Xiao Xinyu said that he would grab the master card and find a shadow to hide from it. The teacher and students looked at him questioningly because they didn't quite understand his answer. He explained that the tiger tearing the sky was the king of beasts, and the only ones who could resist it were masters with 6th level and above. If a novice beast tamer met a torn tiger in the wild, there would only be one outcome, because they were not strong enough to resist such a powerful beast. And on top of that, he would put his ID card in his mouth so that his family could easily determine the identity of his body. And thanks to the shadow, the human body would decompose much slower than usual. The teacher was completely shocked by what he heard, because he obviously did not expect such an interesting and correct answer. He said through gritted teeth that he gave Xiao Xinya's answer the highest score. There was no end to his surprise, because as it turned out, he had asked him questions from the most recent chapters and did not understand how he had managed to answer such difficult questions. Xiao Xinyu showed all the books and said that he had long ago finished studying the material from all the following books and chapters. All the students were completely shocked. They didn't understand how they could keep up with him. They thought Xiao Xinyu was an insanely talented student. He asked the class to continue studying the chapter material on their own and ordered Xiao Xinyu to follow him somewhere. Xiao Xinyu apologized and warned that he would no longer sleep in class. But as it turned out, the teacher had not called him to lecture him about sleeping in class. He was very surprised that Xiao Xinyu had actually managed to master the entire semester's theoretical material in less than half of the classes. Xiao Xinyu had believed that it was all thanks to Mr. Chen's classroom teaching. The teacher didn't really like the way Xiao Xinyu flattered him. And because he had finished the entire theory section, he decided it was time for him to move on to more advanced material. he issued him an Azure Dragon Academy library card. Xiao Xinye was very much surprised. This pass let him visit the Azure Dragon Academy's library in peace, and he had the right to borrow any books for free. After seeing all of his students' knowledge, the teacher realized that he had nothing more to teach him, so he gave him the opportunity to study the material on his own. The events moved to the library of the Azure Dragon Academy. Xiao Xinye fully immersed himself in the study of the following material. He was very attentive to the study of sows in the birthing stage. Suddenly, someone abruptly burst into the library building. It turned out to be the son of the director's advocate Wang Yang. He was very arrogant, because he thought that the whole academy belongs only to him. He ordered all the boys to leave the library building. So of course everyone scattered around and soon left the building. As it turned out, they were very afraid of him, but Xiao Xinye did not pay attention and remained seated in his seat, continuing to study the information carefully. When he saw the girls, he asked them to stay and keep him company while he was supposedly studying. They looked at him with frightened eyes and begged him to let them go. Suddenly, his behavior made Xiao Xinye very angry, and after closing the book, he ordered him to shut up. Wang Yang clearly didn't like this and was very angry. He didn't suspect that anyone would dare to contradict him. Wang Yang's friends pointed their fingers at Xiao Xinye and said that he was the guy who disrespected him. Xiao Xinye stood up for the girls because he considered those people who bully girls to be the bottom. Wang Yang didn't understand who this hero was who dared to cross him. The girl was very scared and advised Xiao Xinye not to mess with this guy just because he is the son of the headmaster's intercessor. And after that, it came to Xiao Xinye's attention for what reason this guy was allowing himself this kind of behavior. Wang Yang was very happy that Xiao Xinye was able to realize this. And since Xiao Xinye now knew who he was, Wang Yang ordered him to kneel down in front of him and apologize, hoping that he would actually carry out all of his instructions. But under no circumstances was Xiao Xinye going to do so. He was really pissed off by this guy's arrogance and decided to teach him a lesson thereby hitting him. Wang Yang shrank back and fell to the floor. His friends clearly did not expect this turn of events. They were completely shocked and began to worry greatly about Wang Yang's condition. Wang Yang was very furious. He didn't understand what right Xiao Xinye had to fight him at all. His strength had left him a bit, but that didn't stop him from threatening Xiao Xinye. He promised him that he would make sure that Xiao Xinye would not be able to stay alive. He continued to act arrogant even while lying on the floor. Suddenly, there was a clack of heels behind them, and they heard a familiar voice. It was the academy principal, and she looked quite stern. With a sneer, she said that she didn't even realize that Qinglong Academy was under the control of this arrogant guy. Wang Yang couldn't understand at all how the principal knew about the incident so quickly and came to them. She seemed to have realized what had happened between them, and she said that since they had a conflict, to solve it, they must comply with rule number 8. This rule is a duel between two conflicting parties. The loser must apologize to the winner. The events have moved to the main arena area. The announcers announced that the fight between Xiao Xinye and Wang Yang was about to take place and invited everyone to watch. But as it turned out, Wang Yang's beast was the legendary 6-headed sky-creating leopard. Can Xiao Xinye really defeat it? It would be a very difficult fight. The teacher was very worried about his student, and he hoped very much that Xiao Xinye would not let him down. The battle was about to begin, and all the participants should enter the arena. As he held his hand before the fight, he threatened Xiao Xinye that after the fight, he would kiss his feet and do his bidding. Without paying attention, he threw him a retort and told him that he would wait for him to personally apologize. This really pissed Wang Yang off. Finally, after a few minutes, the competition between them began. Wang Yang summoned his mighty leopard to the surface. It looked amazing. It was azure blue in color with huge fangs and insanely powerful strength. It was an insanely strong cleaving leopard. Its bloodline was legendary. It had unreal strength, and any attack it made dealt a huge amount of freezing damage. Seeing that this beast had as many as 2 attributes, Xiao Xinye was completely shocked. But it didn't scare him, because he was willing to be responsible for his actions and words. It was his time to speak. He summoned his black fang into the arena. Seeing Xiao Xinye's beast, one of the students was completely shocked. He thought he was very strong and powerful. But the other one clearly disagreed with him, and he thought that the 6-clawed sky-splitting leopard would completely win in this level. Someone was watching everything happening from the VIP seats. It was Academy Principal Qinglong. After taking a closer look, she realized that she had never seen a beast like Xiao Xinye's, but it was very similar to her. It was like an evolutionary version of a wind dog. But after all, a wind dog was always a useless beast that never had an evolutionary path. She couldn't understand how Xiao Xinye was able to create such a transformation with his beast. Meanwhile, in the arena, Wang Yang was trying to humiliate Xiao Xinye in every way possible. He was 100% sure of his victory. He unleashed his ice leopard that could create ice cracks all over the arena with its claw. It looked very powerful. Xiao Xinye's black rock beast had to make a snake-like movement. It dodged the leopard's punches with ease. 2 strong animals clashed in a strong fight. It both possessed very powerful strength, and was willing to put up 100% in the battle. Master watched the duel intently. Xiao Sinyu's Hellstorm Wolf was a beast with the attributes of wind and fire, while the Sky-Splitting Leopard was a beast with the attributes of ice and wind. And at any rate, each of them had flaws that they would not be able to avoid under any circumstances. Wang Yang informed Xiao Xinwu that he would easily be able to immobilize his beast, and after a moment, he released the Ice Leopard outside. Applying the Destructive Sky skill, he struck the Xiao Sinyu beast vividly. And now, he didn't understand what he should do. Xiao Sinyu's beast was completely immobilized and frozen into an ice block. After something like this, no one knew what would happen next. Xiao Sinyu definitely had to think of a further plan of action, because he clearly must not lose to this scum. Wang Yang began to mock Xiao Sinyu very hard after his action. He already knew very well what Xiao Sinyu's outcome would be. Wang Yang was sure that it wouldn't take long for him to defeat the guy, because after freezing Xiao Sinyu's beast, he would simply die from the cold inside that block of ice. From all the seats in the arena, the spectators were watching the fight intently. The principal and teacher were very worried about the guy, hoping that he would be able to do something and not lose to this proud guy. But Xiao Sinyu wasn't scared at all, and he didn't believe that this would really happen. After a moment, Xiao Sinyu took all his strength in his fist and decided to use one spell. He summoned his beast and ordered it to transform into a Night Stalker. Suddenly, after Xiao Sinyu said this, his beast instantly disappeared, and the block of ice became empty. The teacher was well aware that Xiao Sinyu had used the dark property to prevent his beast from dying. Seeing this action, Principal Su was very much surprised, because she clearly didn't expect that Xiao Sinyu's Hell Wolf actually had a third property. Wang Yang was completely shocked by what had happened. He clearly did not expect this turn of events. It was unthinkable in his mind that he would just disappear from his trap like this. But to Xiao Sinyu, this was no surprise, because he was perfectly aware of his actions, knowing what he was doing. Suddenly, a Hell Wolf appeared out of nowhere, and it was preparing to attack Wang Yang directly. Seeing this, Wang Yang was very scared. Suddenly out of nowhere, his leopard rushed to his owner's aid and decided to immediately save him from the Hell Wolf's clutches. The Hell Wolf was by his master's side after a few minutes. Xiao Sinyu was preparing to show everyone his mighty strength in this arena. He was going to give his best because he wanted to teach the rascal Wang Yang a lesson. And after a few seconds, he ordered his Black Fang to use the Silent Claw skill. After that, Xiao Sinyu's beast pounced on the Ice Leopard and began to deliver powerful blows with all his might. It was just a complete failure for Wang Yang because this time, the leopard didn't listen to him and didn't defend itself from the wolf's strikes. Wang Yang was just furious because his animal couldn't hold on anymore. It had almost no strength left to fight back. And with each passing moment, the blows were getting harder and harder. The Silent Claw skill carried great consequences, because it was a dark attribute skill, and because of that, it caused a 3-second silence effect. The leopard had completely taken over this attack, and accordingly it served as a very good chance for the wolf to win. After a few minutes, Xiao Sinyu ordered his wolf to finish this fight and defeat his opponent. With the last strike, they decided to apply the wolf's infernal howl. It was the one that was supposed to be victorious. The wolf threw itself towards the Ice Leopard in order to do the intended thing and defeat the terrifying Wang Yang. And after that strike, the leopard was finished and its body fell down almost powerlessly right on the arena. The host raised Xiao Sinyu's hand up and announced the winner. In this fight, Xiao Sinyu was able to win over the vile Wang Yang. Wang Yang fell to the floor and couldn't believe it. There was no way he wanted to admit defeat. Xiao Sinyu walked up to him to confirm his victory, and this further drove Wang Yang to the ground. Principal Su came down to the arena to remind them of the Academy's rules, because according to rule number 8, the loser must apologize to the winner. Principal Su herself wanted to finally end this matter already, so she decided to remind them about it. To Wang Yang, this was just an unbelievable humiliation. He had never guessed that this would even happen to him. After a moment, Wang Yang bowed to Xiao Xinyu and apologized to him. No matter how angry Wang Yang was, he still did it because he clearly didn't want to be expelled from the academy. And that could really happen if he didn't adhere to the rules created by Principal Su. After his apology, he was already mentally about to prepare a new plan of revenge against Xiao Sinyu. Meanwhile, Principal Su was talking to Xiao Xinwu and praising him. She was very surprised by his performance and said that from now on, he was the second disciple who was able to attract her attention with his skills. She is very much looking forward to Xiao Sinyu's performance in the freshman student ranking competition, which will happen in a few days. Xiao Sinyu embarrassedly thanked Principal Su for all the compliments. But he couldn't help himself and decided to inquire about who was the first person who was able to get her attention earlier. Director Su explained that it was a young genius who had a spiritual score of more than 1,000 points, and it was Yi Xuanming. Xiao Sinyu realized who Director Su was talking about because he had previously heard about this person in the entrance exam. Director Su also appreciated his talent, and because of his victory in this battle, she decided to give him a spatial ring. It was all because of this victory match. She was very happy that Xiao Sinyu had defeated Wang Yang so easily. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked after seeing exactly what Director Su was going to hand him. This spatial ring could store absolutely everything a beast owner would need. It was very portable and necessary because thanks to it, he could carry absolutely anything he would need in the future. There was no way Xiao Xinyu could refuse such a gift. Therefore, he gladly decided to accept it, while also remembering to thank Principal Su. Xiao Xinyu stood near the entrance of the Azure Dragon Academy after the battle. He came out of there, and was about to go home, because he was sure that his sister had been waiting for him at home for a long time, and that was why he had to hurry up. As suddenly, someone flew in and pulled Xiao Xinyu away from his thoughts. It turned out to be a little girl with blue hair. She bumped into the guy a bit, so he asked the little girl if she was alright, like a true gentleman. She was a little scared, and was trying to come to her senses. Therefore, after the guy's question, the little girl replied that she was fine. Xiao Xinyu stroked her head, and asked her to behave a little more carefully next time. After a little admonishment, he asked her to follow her home with caution. As she suddenly called him her big brother, she sweetly informed him that she didn't have a home and asked him to take her with him. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked by what was happening. He couldn't understand why the little girl was behaving like this, and where her parents were. Suddenly, the events moved to the family dormitory. The guy's sister was yelling at the guy and scolding him. She couldn't understand how on her first day of moving in, Xiao Xinyu dared to steal some stranger's child. Xiao Xinyu tried to explain what had happened in the first place. But his sister was completely furious, and she practically prevented him from saying anything. All that came out of her mouth were questions about the stranger's child. And then a little while later, the sister sat with the child on the couch and waited for an explanation from her brother. And as soon as she calmed down, he began his story. This girl's name is Sherming, and she is very much afraid of beasts, and that's why she can't become a beast tamer. Her real family treats her very badly, and that's why she decided to run away from her home. Xiao Xinyu decided to help her face her fear of beasts, and so he brought her to their house. Sherming jumped into Xiao Xinyu's sister's arms and begged her to let her stay because she wasn't going to go to her family now. The sister wasn't as she seemed and gave her approval to Xiao Xinyu's idea. But that wasn't all she said. Therefore, a few minutes later, she decided to add a few words to her line. She ordered Xiao Xinyu that under no circumstances should he choose a woman who was from the Yi family. He looked at his sister with confusion and tried to find a trick in her words. The events moved to the Blue Dragon Academy. The teacher was telling his students something, and they were listening attentively. Xiao Xinyu was also standing there, but he was deep in his thoughts. He couldn't understand why his sister had said that, and her words couldn't get out of his head. And a little later, it turned out that Xiao Xinyu had said it out loud, because the guy standing next to him asked him what he was thinking about, because it was very strange to him. Xiao Xinyu apologized and said that he was a little distracted. As it turned out, Teacher Chen was talking about the battle stance, and this guy asked him to clarify the concept a bit. Beast Masters focus on team play in battle, and each of them has a different role in position. There are archers, and they are able to strike the enemy very hard at huge distances. They have really very long range attacks. There are beast mages with tremendous control skills. They are most often good in group fights and deal very strong damage. There are tanks or beasts with strong defense and healing abilities. They are very good shields for the whole team in battle. Assassins are beasts with very high mobility and destruction power. They are responsible for destroying enemies with low health. Also, there should be a lot of support in the team. These beasts enhance the strength and power of their allies in battle due to their skills. And after Xiao Xinyu's story, this guy was completely shocked. He had no idea that this guy actually knew so much. He asked Xiao Xinyu what category his assault butterfly beast belonged to. Just as suddenly, they were interrupted by the evil Mr. Chen, and he didn't tolerate any conversation during his classes. So he gave them a big warning. And after calming down a bit, he ordered each student to summon his beast to determine the battlefield position of each of them. The first was Song, who and his beast turned out to be a tank, which accordingly makes a huge defense for the allies in battle. Following him was Wu Shinju, and his beast was an assault butterfly. It was great at water attacks, and so it positioned him as a mage. And after him, it was supposed to be Xiao Xinyu's turn. The first test was force attack, and Teacher Chen asked if the guy was ready to do it. Xiao Xinyu was completely ready for this test, and without doubting his strength, he summoned his beast. The Black Fawn used its beautiful infernal howl, and its effect turned out to be a critical hit of triple damage. Xiao Xinyu's strength was simply growing at a tremendous speed. The classmates were completely shocked after seeing Xiao Xinyu's result. They clearly did not expect that he was capable of triple damage. Most of them could barely handle single damage, and so their reactions didn't need to wait long. Mr. Chen knew very well that normally the damage of first specialty beasts could deal damage up to a maximum of 1,500 points. Chen couldn't believe that this was actually happening. How was it even possible that Xiao Xinyu's first stage beast was able to deal a simply huge and critical triple strike? Xiao Xinyu inquired if the test was completed for him. Xiao Xinyu already knew from looking at the results that he and his beast were suitable for the role of an annihilator, So he asked for an exact confirmation from Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen was still unable to recover from his shock. He suggested that the guy test his capabilities to see how far Xiao Sinyu's potential could go. The next test was showing the beast's range. And as it turned out to be more than 800 meters, the friend suggested Xiao Sinyu become a marksman. The next test was the defense test, and Xiao Sinyu's beast was able to easily break through that. His friend was completely shocked because, as it later turned out, even Mr. Chen's unusual ice turtle beast couldn't break through it. Xiao Sinyu's beast result was simply incredible and breathtaking. And now, what remained was the control test. It was a hell of a binding bond for the Xiao Sinyu beast. After the control test, there was a buff test. And Chen revealed that based on the simulated data, any beast within 10 meters of a wolf would receive a 30% enhancement in combat, and on top of that another 10% increase in attack and movement speed. Still, all the students were very curious to know what Xiao Sinyu's role was on the battlefield. Most of them were very much surprised because Xiao Sinyu and his beast surprised them very much. He could choose absolutely any category with those kinds of skills. Suddenly, Mr. Chen informed everyone that he actually knew a special position that would really suit Xiao Sinyu. All the students were eagerly waiting for Mr. Chen's answer. Each of them was eager to finally find out which category Xiao Sinyu could actually fit into. Teacher Chen began his story. He told his students that if a beast master surpasses others in all ranks and positions, then accordingly, that beast master would receive a multifunctional title, which was very logical in this situation. And as it turned out, Xiao Sinyu was the only disciple in the class that would receive this multifunctional title. Xiao Sinyu stood silently in front of the other students. He, just like the rest of the students, was also very surprised by this outcome. His classmates were really shocked by this, and each of them wanted to personally congratulate Xiao Sinyu. Xiao Sinyu was very embarrassed, and his face became flushed in an instant. He felt very embarrassed because everyone's attention was directed towards him. Mr. Chen asked him not to worry too much and put aside all doubts about this matter. But still, such abilities are very rare in this world. All the data on the freshman is still incomplete, but so far, Xiao Sinyu is the only multifunctional student in their class. But he is clearly not the only one in the academy. There are Yi Shuangning and Han Tianzong in the second year. In the third year, there are Murong Qingyang and Li Xuanqing's disciples. And so at this moment in the academy, besides Xiao Sinyu, there are currently 4 multifunction disciples so far. And to calm his disciples down a bit, Mr. Chen explained that each of them must work hard. The lesson is now over, and the events take us outside. Xiao Sinyu was walking down the street, and was deep in his thoughts. Their academy was now starting a small vacation. And in order for Xiao Sinyu to perform well at the ranking of the freshman students, he would need to acquire some improvements for the beast's nutrition. He was very serious. Suddenly, some male voices snapped Xiao Sinyu out of his thoughts. This alerted the guy very much, and he raised his voice to see who it was. One of the guys wondered how Xiao Sinyu didn't know anything about the Black Tiger Guild. And it seems like these guys were clearly set up for something bad. Suddenly, the familiar Wang Yan appeared from behind this guy, and his intentions were clear. Like a rat from behind, he wanted to break Xiao Xinya's limb and kill him for everything. In doing so, Wang Yan was doing just that, inciting President Lei. A bunch of guys started moving towards Xiao Sinyu. They wanted to deal with him as soon as possible and do something bad to him. Every single one of them wanted to do some kind of harm to him. As soon as Xiao Sinyu looked at the stars on their clothes, he realized that they were all animal taming masters. This really pissed the guy off. He thought it was too much for so many masters to attack him alone. But it didn't scare him too much. Young Wang Yan was about to attack Xiao Sinyu, but the president of their league, Mr. Li, stopped him and said that he would personally take care of Xiao Sinyu's revenge. And after a few minutes, Mr. Li summoned his ice leopard. It looked simply marvelous and very powerful. Mr. Li ordered his leopard to pounce on Xiao Xinwu. But this didn't scare the guy at all, and he in turn decided to act as well. Xiao Sinyu summoned his black fang as soon as possible, and it pounced on the leopard in a flash. The black fang was a very strong and powerful beast. With a little time, Xiao Sinyu was able to train it. Xiao Sinyu's beast easily threw the leopard away from him. There was so much strength in it that no one had clearly expected it. Mr. Li was completely shocked by what was happening, because Junior Wang Yang hadn't told him that this kid's beast would turn out to be so strong. Mr. Li was simply furious. There was no way in his mind that such a beast would even be able to engage in a fight with his extraordinary Thunder Tiger. He thought his beast was the most powerful, and this upset him greatly. Mr. Li decided to test Xiao Sinyu for his abilities. He was very curious about how a guy with 1 star could prove himself. So they called out their beasts as a guild. Mr. Li was confident that his 4-star tiger guild would be much stronger than this little guy's strength. All the tigers lined up and were ready to strike at the command of their tamers. Suddenly something made them pay attention, and they were all very surprised. Because Director Su's daughter appeared in front of them, and she was fully confident that her guild was much stronger than theirs, and they could easily defeat them. Xiao Sinyu was completely shocked after seeing them in front of him. because he clearly didn't expect anyone to come to his aid. Last chapter ended with Xiao Xinyu being completely shocked after seeing them near him, because he obviously didn't expect someone to come to his rescue. And as it turned out, it was Sister Qing who came to his aid. He was overwhelmed with warm feelings, as he clearly did not expect to see her here. At the same time, President Li and his allies were surrounded by Heavenly Guild warriors. They were very frightened and didn't know how to get out of this situation. And as it turned out, their fears were not in vain, since the Celestial Guild was very strong in rank and ranked second in Longin City in terms of influence. After all, even a top-ranked Hurricane Guild wouldn't risk facing them. Sister Qing had so much power and influence that she could keep many people in fear. Therefore, each of these guys were definitely also wary of her. As it turned out, Qing happened to be walking by and noticing something amiss. She decided to check it out. She heard a familiar voice and realized that her brother Xiao Xinyu was involved in this fight. As soon as those guys heard her calling him brother, they looked at them in surprise, because everyone knew about Qing being President Qing's only daughter. But this reaction didn't embarrass Qing at all, and she explained that Xiao Xinyu was her sworn brother. He had helped her a lot in his time, so this whim was personally hers. Qing warned each of them that if anyone laid a finger on him, they would deal with her accordingly. These words really scared Mr. Li so much that even his body was covered in sweat. And as it turned out, apart from Qing Yanran, the entire Heavenly Guild would be there to defend Xiao Xinyu. Xiao Xinyu clearly did not expect this turn of events and stood there in complete shock. Li was very frightened and knelt down on his knees and did not stop apologizing. He assured everyone that it was just a simple misunderstanding. And after a few minutes of continuous apologizing, he decided to come clean. Li pointed his finger at Wang Yan and blamed him for what happened. Wang Yan was the one who had actually ordered them to deal with Xiao Xinyu. Wang Yan was very frightened. He put his hands up and tried to justify himself in some way. Qing looked at President Li and informed him that he himself should deal with that guy. Li had no choice but to silently follow Qing Yanran's order because she could do anything to him. He and his gang just had to teach Wang Yan a lesson. Wang Yan was very confused because he clearly did not expect such a turn of events. He could not even think that those whom he hired will end up bullying him. The events are being moved to the Heavenly Guild's main headquarters. Qing asked Xiao Xinyu how he even managed to meet these people. He had to explain that he was just walking along thinking about buying nutritional supplements, and suddenly they just appeared out of nowhere. Once she found out that he needed some supplements, she hurriedly offered to help him, since the Heavenly Guild is in charge of this, and Xiao Xinyu can always call on them for help. And as soon as he needs new beast food supplies, he must inform Qing, and she will gladly give it to him for free. Xiao Xinyu was very surprised by this, as he clearly didn't expect such generosity from her. After finishing with Qing Yanran's suggestions, she decided to give him a small tour of the Heavenly Guild's main headquarters. After walking through a few corridors, they found themselves in the training facility. It was equipped with modern equipment, so that masters could improve their skills. Next, they proceeded to the recreation area. In this place, the Beast Lords could rest after completing missions, as there were so many cool facilities. After the rest area, they went to the conference room, which was located on the top floor. This was where they very often held important meetings where they strategized and discussed important missions. After that, she showed him the guild's medical department. It was fully furnished with medical equipment and had a huge assortment of medicinal herbs. It was the place where veterinarians gave first aid to injured beasts. After that, Xiao Xinyu was very surprised because he had no idea that the guild would have an entire medical aid room. After such an extensive tour, Xiao Xinyu really wanted to join them and be a member of the Heavenly Guild. He decided to ask Qing, and perhaps she would be able to arrange it. Suddenly, someone's voice interrupted their dialogue. A grown-up girl appeared in front of them, and she was indignant, because she couldn't understand how these young people were able to get into the emergency room. This was Lu Yu, and she was the vice president of the Heavenly Guild. She was Qing Yanran's own aunt. Qing was not confused, and when she saw her, she decided to introduce her immediately. She explained that he was the guy who had helped her calm the monkeys on the train, and after that, she considered him her sworn brother. Suddenly, some guy burst into the office and interrupted them. As it turned out, he came running in to break the breaking news. He said that several injured beasts were in the medical wing right now. And the main problem is that they don't have enough staff right now. Panic had clearly taken hold of this guy, and he couldn't calm down. Lu Yu tried to calm him down in some way and suggested that the staff from the other branches be called to help immediately. She told Qing to urgently apply for help from other guilds. But the guy said that they had practically no time left, because the red liquid was flowing out of their bodies at a tremendous speed. The beasts wouldn't be able to survive for long if they didn't receive first aid soon. Suddenly, Xiao Xinyu said that he could handle this task. He put his hand on his heart and swore with his life that he would save these injured animals. And as it turned out, to refuse any help at such a difficult moment was not worth it. The events take place in the Celestial Guild building. The green-eyed mastiff was lying on the operating table at number 3, dripping red liquid. They had to get a spare bag for the red liquid as soon as possible. All decisions were made quickly and urgently. The guys were very confused. They carried the animal on the operating table and ran for the doctor to give it emergency medical attention. He rushed past the crowd of people and begged the doctor to do his best to save his animal. The animal had lost a lot of red fluid, and the first thing they need to do is stop the fluid from spilling. They found a remedy that was supposed to stop it, but it didn't work. They then decided to use a cure, but unfortunately it didn't work either. Everyone was in complete shock because they didn't understand how they could do it. Suddenly, Xiao Xinyu intervened and said that it was pointless as ordinary hemostasis would not work in this case. Now Xiao Xinyu's ability was just in time. He took a closer look at the beast to make a full analysis. The green-eyed mastiff's life sign said that the magic beast poison beetle had inflicted a pinpoint wound, which was accompanied by a fluorescent green-colored obstructive slime. And that's why the mucus is why the wound won't heal. The mastiff's injury was caused by the goldenrod beetle, the poisonous mana bee. This bright green mucus is a very strong toxin that prevents the wound from healing. Suddenly, Xiao Xinyu thought and found a way to stop the red liquid from spilling out, but before he could do that he needed the beast owner's trust. This guy had no choice and was willing to do anything for his animal. He begged Xiao Xinyu to help him in any way he could. The medicinal potion would require 1 sky spirit herb and 1 purple medicinal flower. They would need to be grinded together in 1 container. And after that, you will get 20 grams of liquid medicine. After that, you need to add the core of a magical beast of extraordinary rank, which is poisonous properties. And for the final preparation, you must boil this solution for 5 minutes. But the doctors were well aware that each of these herbs is poisonous in its own way. Wouldn't this potion make the beast worse? They didn't quite trust Xiao Xinyu's proposed method. Suddenly, Xiao Xinyu ordered them to immediately create this medicine and follow all the points of creating it, because if they missed such a chance, this beast would definitely not survive. They decided not to waste a moment of time and get everything they needed for the medicine as soon as possible. Xiao Xinyu had to follow them to help them. After a couple minutes, the potion was ready. He returned as soon as possible and brought the already prepared medicine for the green-eyed beast. Xiao Xinyu carefully put on his gloves and prepared to rescue the beast. He soaked his hands in the prepared potion. And after that, he carefully touched the beast's wound and smeared it with the prepared medicine. As suddenly after a moment, the beast roared loudly, and the entire space shone with a magical light. Xiao Xinyu and the owner of the beast looked at it excitedly. And after both of them looked at the beast's wound, they saw the spilling of red liquid start to stop, and the beast's wound started to heal a little bit at a time. The guy cried with happiness beside his beast, rejoicing that his animal's life had been saved. At that time, Xiao Xinyu went over to Vice President Lu to see if she was satisfied with what he had done. His act really impressed her, although she didn't trust his treatment method much at the beginning. But now, she solemnly announced to him her invitation to join the Heavenly Guild. She really wants him to become a specialized pharmacist of their medical office from now on. Xiao Xinyu shook hands with the vice president and happily thanked her for the invitation. Xiao Xinyu's sister scolded him very much for being late. She couldn't realize that Xiao Xinyu only came home so late for one reason. He had signed a cooperation contract with the Celestial Guild, and he would be working for them as a pharmacist from now on. Xiao Xinyu looked at her sister fearfully and confirmed all of her words. And now she realized that once he had the fake sister Qing, he had forgotten about his real sister. But Xiao Xinyu denied everything because it was impossible. She would forever be the truest sister to him no matter what. Suddenly, the little girl appeared and asked what this special pharmacist meant. Xiao Xinyu explained that from now on, he was a true employee of the Heavenly Guild, and he would now receive a salary for his work. Therefore, this weekend, Xiao Xinyu decided to give his little family a class party. The little girl was very excited about it, and was looking forward to the party. And suddenly, moments later, the events happened in the room of that very Wang Yang. Wang Yang was lying on his bed, and mentally hated Xiao Xinyu. He promised himself that he would make this guy pay for his actions. Just as suddenly, his father appeared beside the guy. He hated him for his son allowing himself such behavior. Wang Yang begged him to cooperate and help him teach Xiao Xinyu a lesson. He stood over the boy and couldn't believe that his son really couldn't win over a small-town boy. Wang Yang was a complete disgrace to him because his father didn't even expect such a loss in the ring. Wang Yang had not only embarrassed himself, but he had also pulled his entire family into this disgrace. Wang Yang cried and begged his father to stop bullying him. This guy couldn't even think that someone like Xiao Xinyu would have 3 beast attributes. And since the Heavenly Guild is on Xiao Xinyu's side, Wang Yang would definitely not be able to avenge him for everything. Father was well aware that their family would not be allowed to charge the Heavenly Guild with anything. Suddenly, a great plan came into his father's mind. He thought that if there was an accident at the trial and Xiao Xinyu was killed by a beast, it would definitely have nothing to do with their family. It was a great evil plan, and they were going to carry it out as soon as possible. And now the long-awaited and exciting day has finally arrived. Today is the Yin Nan Shan trial for all freshmen. This trial will be broadcast live on the World Wide Web. Everyone was eager to start as soon as possible. Each participant received a bracelet on their arm. The bracelet would record the number of beasts destroyed, and it would also be able to record each battle scene. 1 to 10 destructions would mean level C, 11 to 30 destructions would mean level B, 31 to 50 destructions would mean level A, 51 to 80 destructions would be level S, and finally above 80 destructions would mean the highest grade of S+ level. Principal Su asked Vice President Wang to announce the top students of this year's freshman class before the test began. The guys in the distance were discussing heatedly about last year's test results, and Yining was the winner then. Mr. Wang picked up the microphone and was ready to announce this year's top freshman students. As it turned out after the battle position test, there are 3 top gifted students this year. In the freshman class, it turned out to be Mu Rong's disciple Yang Shou. As it later turned out, he was the eldest son of the Mu Rong family. Next, there is another top student in the same class, and it is Mu Rong Xian. Everyone was very surprised that they were from the same family, and on top of that the 2 best students were in the same class. And the 3rd best student was Xiao Xinyu. As soon as he heard that they were from the Mu Rong family, he got curious. There are 4 huge beast tamer families in China. They are the Yi family, the Li family, the Mu Rong family, and the Shan Guan family. And it looks like they're among the top Mu Rong family. The events have moved to the Azure Dragon Academy's radio station, Qingluan. This is the live broadcast host Yang Su. He will be broadcasting live and commenting on the entire trial process. Director Su turned to the vice president because she was very curious to know his thoughts on the number of destructions Xiao Xinyu would make. Wang was confident that the number of beasts he would destroy would touch 50, as he was sure that it would be a great result for Xiao Xinyu. Teacher was well aware that it was impossible, because with Xiao Xinyu's strength and talent, the number would clearly touch at least 80. The professor was 100% confident in his disciple's abilities. But no one could actually know the correct answer in advance. Principal Su really liked Xiao Xinyu, and she was looking forward to the highest score from him, because she was confident that he would be able to beat the result of last year's test. Each of the freshmen had to enter in turn. After a few seconds, the trial officially began. Not even half an hour passed before the second class successfully destroyed the short-tailed bear. In total, it had already brought about 10 annihilations. Principal Su was watching all the events closely at the time. The presenter congratulated Sun Tian Hao from the 5th grade because the number of his destructions had already reached 20. This was simply marvelous, because in Mu Rongyang Shou's first class, Mu Rongyang Shou had already managed to destroy as many as 43 beasts. This was basically to be expected. Everyone was well aware that the Mu Rong family was the best. Some people who were watching even wanted to marry him. The girls just went crazy when they heard this guy's name. The host continued to broadcast live and commented on all the events. Mu Rongyang Shou's white griffin Mu Rongyang Shou is indeed the only beast that possesses super strength in this difficult challenge. The ability to penetrate space is really good because it allows him to be next to the beast at the same second, and at the same time, every attack he makes has a penetrating effect. The snake with silver fangs is the beast with the best ability to recover. But this did not give it the ability to block the white griffin's skills in any way, and so its demise was simply terrifying. Yang Shou's white griffin tormented the silver snake in its beak with fury, and finally destroyed it mercilessly. Now it was left to Yang Shou to complete this action. He needs to destroy the crystal core inside the beast. The results were simply marvelous. The Mu Rong family came in 2nd and 1st place. And at the same time, Xiao Xinyu's destruction number was almost the same as theirs. After watching Yang Shou's performance, the viewers could now follow the host and switch to Xing Xian Xing. Mu Rong Xian's Mu Rong beast was a bone-winged flyer. His bloodline reaches a legendary quality. He was the only undestroyable beast in this trial. And now, a 2nd-ranked bloodthirsty lion appeared on their path. Its physical strike has 5 times critical effect, and it is really very strong. But since it has appeared in their path, it will be easily destroyed at the earliest possible time. If Xian were to destroy this beast, the number of it destroyed would reach 51. As it turned out, the audience thought her talent was much better than her brother's. She was simply incredibly beautiful and strong. Ian Shou looked at the results and was shocked, because this time, his sister had actually taken the 1st place. Just as suddenly, the expression on his face changed drastically, because he realized that someone had dared to surpass his sister and overtake him. And that's what had happened just 1 minute ago. This was what could change all of Mu Rong family's plans in today's victory. Xian was already prepared for her beast to accomplish the destruction of the legendary bloodthirsty lion right now. Finally, she was finally able to make another destruction in her table. Just as suddenly, she heard Xiao Xinyu's voice, and apparently, he ordered his beast to immediately launch an attack. Xian was completely shocked by what was happening because she was perplexed by what she heard. Just as suddenly, Xiao Xinyu's black fawn abruptly appeared in front of the flyer, and it looked like it was going to steal Xian's beast annihilation. This was clearly not expected by anyone. All the spectators were completely shocked by what was happening. Once again, we return to the same Nanshan trial. Xiao Xinyu jumped in front of her with a joyful grin and thanked Miss Mu Rong for her gift. As it turned out, he had managed to intercept the three-eyed lion's destruction from her. His cunning was clearly at its best. After seeing this, Milady Xian was furious. Nico couldn't even describe her feelings because no one had clearly expected this turn of events. Xiao Xinyu was a cunning fellow, and thanks to his cunning, he was able to take the lead and overtake Miss Mu Rong. There was really no escaping from such an attack, so this gave Xiao Xinyu a good advantage in further victory. Suddenly, the situation on the battlefield changed very quickly. Just out of nowhere, a huge three-eyed demon ant appeared near them. The situation at any second could get out of this guy's control. At this very time, the two exchanged disdainful glances. A huge competition could be seen in their faces. Which one of them would take this annihilation to their list this time? The desire for victory increased with every passing moment, each of them willing to do anything for victory. After a few minutes, Xiao Xinyu made a decision and realized that he needed to be the first to launch an attack on the demon. He ordered his beast to attack the ant, but it wasn't that easy. The three-eyed demon ant is known for its thick and hard body. But even that didn't scare Xiao Xinyu's beast, and after a couple minutes, its flames mercilessly burned the demon. Xiao Xinyu cheered for his beast with all his hands, and hoped for a speedy victory in this trial. He ordered his black fawn to use all his strength and end this fight as soon as possible. And a moment later, he applied a super strong Hellhound attack. The black fawn struck all parts of the ant's body thanks to its flames. And Xian, seeing this, was not going to stay aside, and launched his beast attack as well. The bone flyer released a sonic wind blade, and with this action, it was able to interrupt the black fawn's extreme attack. And after interrupting the attack in the same instant, he released a cold flame and thus destroyed the three-eyed demon ant. The last part left before finally destroying the beast was destroying the core that was inside the beast. With her delicate hands, Xian touched the core of the beast and was eager to finally complete it. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked, as he clearly did not expect such a turn of events. He couldn't even imagine that Miss Mu Rong would dare to start a grudge against him. The further development of events became more and more interesting. Now, the number of annihilations of these two had equalized, and they were both at the top of the table. There was only 1 hour left until the end of the challenge. The spectators all over the country were eager to find out who would actually win the challenge. Whoever managed to take first place would be an honorary disciple of this academy. Xiao Xinyu and Black Fang were already looking for their next victim. They quietly crept up and prepared to attack. The Black Fang gathered all its strength and prepared to attack. Suddenly, someone behind them caught their attention. Once again, the two were aiming at the same beast at the same time. Wherever Xiao Xinyu went, this Mu Rong family girl decided to follow his footsteps all the time. She decided that it would be much easier to destroy the beasts, at least because someone had found them. They were shocked and silently froze, not knowing what to do. In the last half hour of the trial, Madame Mu Rong had stolen all the destruction from Xiao Xinyu, and thus was able to take the lead. Xiao Xinyu tried to explain that just because he had only done this once, it didn't mean that she should steal all of his destructions. Xian should immediately stop chasing after Xiao Xinyu, because he thought it was an unfair competition, and which one of them would actually be able to win. Perhaps in the final moments of the challenge, Xiao Xinyu would be able to overtake this beauty. Xian could hear the thoughts of the spectators in her head. Some of them spoke well, and some not so well. But most of them were sure that her talents were much better than her brother's. She listened disdainfully, and tried to figure out what to do next. Was Xiao Xinyu bragging about her accomplishments? At this very second, the guy was determined, and so he is going to work his ass off. So the lovely Xian must be careful with him. Because as it turned out earlier, he hadn't shown his full strength yet. Even the host was completely shocked at what was happening. There was only half an hour left until the end of the challenge. Everyone was very curious if Xiao Xinyu would be able to win. During the entire trial, the spectators realized that these two had long since managed to break the records of last year's trials. Each of them was quite strong. Xian and Xiao Xinyu were both vying for first place, each of them eager to win the trial. But after all, someone would manage to get better sooner or later. So who would it be? Xian's advantage was in height, because her flyer could fly high into the sky. And she was sure that Xiao Xinyu wouldn't be able to destroy any beast so high up. Holding tightly onto her flyer, Xian was determined to attack the next beast in her path. Suddenly, Xiao Xinyu noticed this girl behind him. This diverted his attention a bit. But under no circumstances was he going to give up. There was only half a minute left, so he was sure that she obviously couldn't win. She was on top of him, and he was on the bottom, and the most important thing was that the two didn't suddenly collide. Suddenly, something scared Xiao Xinyu very much. The eye of the oncoming beast was incredibly fierce, and it seemed like it was clearly intent on something bad. Xiao Xinyu couldn't understand what was happening right now. How come a perfect and powerful rank 3 beast was here? This scared the guy very much, and he jumped on his beast as soon as possible. This huge and powerful beast was rushing straight towards them. One had to make some sort of decision as soon as possible. Xiao Xinyu was completely confused, and now he was truly scared. This beast had pushed Xiao Xinyu and his beast down. Would it really end up like this? Xiao Xinyu was also truly very scared because he started to feel very worried about him. Xiao Xinyu grabbed onto the protruding beam and tried his best to hold onto himself and the Black Fang. Their lives were on the brink of life and death. Xian Xinyu bent down and gave them a helping hand. She really hoped to save them. And while she was busy saving them, her flyer tried to distract the beast and attacked it. This moment was very exciting, and all the viewers were worried for their lives. Suddenly, someone in the bushes caught Xiao Xinyu's attention. He was completely shocked because he clearly didn't expect to see Wang Yang here. The tree could crack at any moment. There was only a little bit left before it broke, and that seemed to be the end for them. The stick was broken because it couldn't hold such a load for long, and Xian was screaming and trying to help Xiao Xian. She was very worried because she obviously didn't expect either of them to die in this ordeal. The events moved to the radio station of the Azure Dragon Academy. Principal Su and the teacher were having a heated discussion. Mr. Chen was furious, and he wasn't going to let it go. He had to save his students. Principal Su tried to calm Mr. Chen down and promised that she would do her best to save her students as well. There was no way she could let something like this happen to any of them. The teacher was going to order the security team to start emergency rescue procedures at this very second. A situation like this certainly couldn't wait. The two of them were both very tense, and at the same time, Mr. Wang was sitting without any emotion. He thought he was a genius because just one small action of his, and they would finally end Xiao Xinyu's life. This was all part of their plan with their son. It was all at the foot of the Yimanshan cliff. Xiao Xinyu didn't understand what was even happening and whether he would live on. His gaze was practically exhausted, as well as his body. Suddenly, a picture popped up in his mind, and he remembered seeing the evil Wang Yang in the bushes. He realized that it was all that bastard's fault, and this time, Xiao Xinyu was determined. He had to teach that bastard a great lesson. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to Black Fang, who was lying breathlessly on the ground. Xiao Xinyu was very frightened as soon as he saw it. Could it be that in order to save Xiao Xinyu, his beast had decided to sacrifice himself and use himself as a soft pillow so that Xiao Xinyu's fall would be soft? His beast's pain was very intense. Just as suddenly, Xiao Xinyu remembered the medicine in his pocket. He was well aware that this could happen and had brought it with him in advance before the test. He brought the liquid to the Black Fang and asked him to drink it because this medicine would be able to take away almost all the pain after his fall. Just as suddenly, the weather abruptly turned bad, and Xiao Xinyu realized that it had started to rain. He leaned over the beast and promised that he would find a place for them to take shelter from the rain as soon as possible. Xiao Xinyu found himself in some unknown cave. And right from there, he was watching the sky and wondering when this nasty rain would finally end. Xiao Xinyu was very sad because he realized that his sister would be very worried about him. He remembered how Xian was not afraid and reached out to him with her helping hand. He was still shocked by such an action. Xiao was also worried about her because he was worried about how she was doing now. Just as suddenly, a bright red heel stepped on the ground at this instant. Is there really anyone else in this cave besides Xiao Xinyu? A moment later, some female hand grabbed the guy, thereby frightening him very much, because he definitely didn't expect such a thing. She grabbed him, and was about to destroy him, because Xiao Xinyu saw her real face. For some reason she called him a human. What is this lady really like? After a few minutes, Xiao Xinyu's eyes lit up with a bright blue color, and it seems to have happened to him again. He was once again able to see the system panel, and find out all the details about her. As it turned out, it was a beast queen. Her beast's evolutionary path was perfect, and it was a nine-tailed fox dragon. By the standards of the system, she was very powerful and strong. Her beast attribute was 90 tails, and it seemed Xiao casually said it out loud. She was very surprised because she couldn't understand how Xiao Xinyu knew her. Xiao Xinyu was very scared, and tried every way, an excuse to save himself from being killed. But after he found out everything about her, there was no way she could let him live. Xiao hoped that he would still be able to stop her. He abruptly decided to inform her that, after being wounded by the pure-blood dragon, she would not survive, and would die in about half an hour. She was completely shocked, and couldn't understand how he knew this. She was very confused and started coughing, and at the same time Xiao Xinyu realized that he shouldn't miss such a chance to save herself. Raising his hand, he pointed the seal directly at her, and a bright light struck her entire face. Xiao Xinyu managed to completely blind this beautiful madam. She was very surprised and scared because she couldn't understand who he was, and how he managed to do this to her. She seemed to be very uncomfortable, and covered her face with her hands. Red liquid started pouring out of her mouth very quickly. Xiao Xinyu kept saying that if he was able to find out that she was Ninetails, he would just as easily see such a small thing. This beast's condition was extremely critical. She was injured very badly because the dragon power had completely entered her body, and affected so many parts of it. Even her heart veins were broken and damaged. Xiao Xinyu didn't understand where the pure-blood dragon race came from, because they had been wiped out about 300 years ago. But all he knew was that he was obligated to calm her down and save her life for the moment. But she didn't understand how a peer-to-peer beast tamer could save her and heal her from such a severe injury. Her wound was made by a purebred dragon, and that was why even the strongest doctor tamer would definitely not be able to heal her. This all seemed very much crazy to her, and she couldn't believe that he would actually be able to cure such a thing. Xiao Xinyu was confident that it wouldn't be a problem for him. He is really willing to help her, however. He was still scared that, after he completed his task, she would destroy him. He's clearly not ready to die so soon, so he comes up with his plan. In order for their deal to be valid, and it will truly save his life, then they must make a real contract on the red liquid of their two. The events take us back to the very cave where Xiao Xinyu had previously hidden from the rain. She was extremely furious after hearing the proposal from Xiao Xinyu. This furious beast queen had no intention of accepting the proposal. After the guy announced the rules of his contract, she immediately guessed everything. She knew that he wouldn't just cure her. He would probably want to subjugate her, and then she would have to become his beast. From Xiao Xinyu's face, one could tell that he was definitely up to something. In this case, his cunning played a bad trick on him, because she was not stupid at all and had guessed all of his plans. That's exactly what he wanted to do. Her reaction didn't make him shrug. After what she said, she was ready to destroy him at any second. Rage completely took over her entire body. Even though she had been injured by a pure-blood dragon earlier, she could easily bid farewell to Xiao Xinyu, because her body was filled with more and more power with each passing moment. A powerful magical energy was emanating from her. A moment later, her hands were already on Xiao Xinyu's throat. She could easily destroy him for the moment, but if she really did that, her life would end as quickly as his. After saying that, she thought very hard. She didn't understand how she should act in this situation. Would she really have to submit to Xiao Xian? This was all very low for her. That was why she was so hesitant in this decision. But perhaps, then, he would save her life. Xiao Xinyu was already aware that the dragon power had practically penetrated her heart. And if she didn't agree to make a contract with him now, it might be too late. He decided to firmly put her in front of a choice. She didn't know what decision to make in this situation. She knew perfectly well that the time for her death had not yet come. It was too soon. She had some unfinished business, and the most important of them was her own sister's assignment. After a few seconds, her hand around the guy's neck began to loosen a little at a time. Even though she had left a fair amount of wounds on her, he still really wanted to help her. And once she had completely released the guy from her grip, she decided to give her verdict on her decision. After a moment, through gritted teeth, she announced that she was willing to accept his offer. And since they had to make a pact on their red liquid earlier, Xiao Xinyu bit through the skin on his finger in order to extract his red liquid from there. And after a few seconds, it began to ooze out from his small wound. He brought his finger to the center of her forehead, and then a bright star appeared above her. It was like a ritual. And now from this very moment, she would belong to Xiao Xinyu. This fox will now become his personal beast. And after that, she finally heard his name for the first time. After this ritual, she couldn't wait for Xiao Xinyu to cure her as soon as possible. She had only accepted his offer for this reason, which was why it had to happen as soon as possible. And since they were now bound, he was obligated to help her in this situation and keep his promise. After a few minutes, he started to undress. As soon as she saw it, she was in complete shock. She couldn't understand why Xiao Xinyu was taking off his clothes. As soon as he took off his clothes, he immediately picked up a dagger. Xiao Xinyu explained that he was only doing this to cure her of her pure-blood dragon wound. She couldn't settle down and ordered him to immediately put his clothes back on. After a few seconds, he pierced his chest with his dagger because he saw no other way to give her his red liquid. Xiao Xinyu made a small incision on his body and ordered her to immediately drink his red liquid that was oozing directly from his wound. She was very angry and embarrassed because she didn't understand why she had to do such a thing. She was never going to do such a thing, so she couldn't agree to such a suggestion. Xiao Xinyu knew that this was the only way that would help in this situation. His red liquid would be able to protect her heart from the power of a powerful pure-blood dragon for a while. When she heard that, she thought and realized that there was no other way now. And since she had made a pact with him, there was definitely no turning back. After a moment, she leaned over his body and moved closer to his wound. Then she began to lick a little of the red liquid that was oozing from his wound. And just a few seconds later, she felt something. She felt her body begin to fill with an unreal energy, and her heart was returning to its former strength. Xiao Xinyu's red liquid was able to completely fill her heart. Xiao Xinyu explained that for a while, his red liquid would help her. And after that, he still needed to know her name, since he was now her master. After a few moments, she still decided to introduce herself. Her name was Delu. She looked at him with understanding because at least he was able to save her life. And since he was her master from now on, she was very eager to know one thing. Dailu still had no idea how he had managed to do it. Dailu really wanted to know how Xiao Xinyu was able to know that her wound was made by a purebred dragon. Xiao Xinyu was well aware that Dailu was somehow related to the dragons that had disappeared. Such a coincidence had obviously not just appeared on his path. Therefore, Perhaps she would be able to understand what was happening to him. So he decided not to hide anything from her and decided to tell the whole truth. About 2 months ago, as soon as the dragon red liquid entered his eyes, then they changed a lot after this incident. As soon as Xiao Xinyu starts to focus on something, a beast information panel appears in front of him. And it feels like it's some sort of system. And it was through this system panel that Xiao Xinyu found out about her injury. Daylu looked at his eyes with surprise, and after a few seconds, she saw something unusual in them. As it turned out, his eyes were very similar to the legendary demon god's eyes. She had heard a little information about them earlier. Someone had said that they could actually see all the information about any beast. But that simply couldn't be true, as Xiao Xinyu was just an ordinary person. Looking at him closely, she tried to figure out who this guy really was. Xiao Xinyu looked at her with interest because she was hoping to hear some answer. Before answering him, she decided to think it over carefully. Since he was his master now, she simply had to inform him. If these are actually the eyes of a demonic god, then perhaps it's a good thing. After a few minutes, she still decided to reply and inform him that Xiao Xinyu was very lucky. Apparently, his eyes had changed under the influence of the dragon red liquid that had gotten inside them a few months ago. And after that influence, they had turned into the eyes of a demon god. As soon as Xiao Xinyu heard this, he was completely shocked. He absolutely couldn't believe what he heard because he had previously thought that it was just a system panel. Daylu had ordered him not to make up anything extra for himself. He wasn't some cartoon character. She thought he'd seen too many fantasy movies. And what he can see is simply a visualization of the abilities of the demon god's eyes. Xiao Xinyu was very surprised after what Daylu said. There was at least no explanation for the fact that he had heard someone else's voice in his head earlier. After a few minutes, a memory of what had happened earlier appeared in his head. Some unknown voice had told him then to take the stone, and then the red liquid of his beast would change, thus allowing it to awaken. The first time it happened was after the shadow dragon attack. Back then, an unknown voice ordered him to take the crystal to awaken his beast's bloodline. Xiao Xinyu listened to the unknown voice for some reason, and in the entrance exam, he gave his beast that magic crystal. And so thanks to that crystal, after a few minutes, his beast evolved into a hellstorm wolf. Because of this, it had gained unreal strength. Xiao Xinyu was completely absorbed in his thoughts, and he had no idea when he would be able to hear that unknown voice again. Suddenly, while they were sitting in the cave, a beast with huge fangs approached them. While they were talking, they had no time to see it. A few minutes later, a huge fire lion aimed its attack right at the two of them. Daylu immediately grabbed Xiao Xian, trying to save him from the powerful beast's attack. The events take us back to the same cave where Xiao Xinyu found himself with the beautiful and strong Daylu. And things are not going well for them at the moment. That very same fire lion had caught up with them near the cave. It was a rank 3 beast, and it was once again trying to attack Xiao Xinyu. As it turned out, it was the same beast that caused Xiao Xinyu to fall off the cliff. Xiao Xinyu and Daylu were completely shocked at what was happening. The guy obviously didn't expect that this lion would be able to catch up with him even in a quiet cave. The situation was very tense because a beast of this rank was quite strong and could easily destroy the guy. A few moments later, the fire lion was right beside them. Its body was blazing with unrealistically strong fire, and once it caught up with them, it was ready to easily destroy the two of them. The lion crushed everything in its path. Xiao Xinyu was very scared because he was definitely not ready to say goodbye to his life right now. But there was no plan in this situation, so they had to think of something and act. Their business was definitely not good. The lion had gotten very close to them, and Xiao Xinyu felt like they were in a hopeless situation. He stood silently and couldn't figure out what to do. As suddenly after a moment, the bright forces transformed into a lion attack. Someone started ruthlessly attacking him and defending the guy. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked by what was happening. He clearly didn't expect Daylu to stand up for him. Even though she was injured, there was no way she would let anyone attack her and her master. That was why she unleashed her powers and directed them at the fire lion. The claws on the fire lion's paws were very large. With just one move, it could easily destroy someone. He targeted Daylu because she had previously made him very angry with her attacks. Daylu's magical tail kept attacking the fire lion. She was very strong even though she had recently been injured by a purebred dragon. Daylu was a very fiery lady. That's why she was furious that someone dared to attack her, the Great Empress. And now she decided that it was time to not hold back and unleash all her power to attack the fire lion. After a few moments, she prepared herself and began to attack the fire lion with all her might. In literally a few strikes, Daylu was able to burn and destroy this beast. She used her powerful skills and defeated it, thus being able to protect herself and Xiao Xinyu. But during the destruction process, something unusual happened, as if there was a real dragon's eye inside the lion. And it looked like they were finally safe. But suddenly after a few minutes, Xiao Xinyu reported that he didn't feel very well. And just a few seconds later, his eyes started to slowly close. Daylu tried to call out to him, but all attempts were futile. Events began to happen inside Xiao Xinyu's mind. The dragon was very excited to finally see him again. It was the very real demon eye. Xiao Xinyu was very scared. He still couldn't understand who was talking to him. He was very scared because he didn't understand where he was, and he also didn't know the voice of the person who was shouting. The voice continued to speak to him, and this time it said that Xiao Xinyu had forgotten him. After all, he was the one who had helped Xiao Xinyu's beasts evolve, because earlier he had obtained a crystal from him that had awakened the beast's bloodline. And after a few moments, Xiao Xinyu actually remembered the sounding voice, because he was the one who had actually given him that red crystal. But still, he never bothered to find out who it was. As it turned out, the red liquid of that dragon had awakened that voice. And in fact, the sounding voice itself had no idea who it was. This kind of thing made Xiao Xinyu wonder what was going on. But the most important thing that he knew was that he would easily be able to help Xiao Xinyu achieve the greatest greatness in this life. This made Xiao Xinyu laugh. He couldn't understand how a voice that didn't know his name would be able to help him in such a difficult challenge. But the voice said that Xiao Xinyu had seen some of his abilities before. After a few minutes, Xiao Xinyu guessed that the system panels were definitely his handiwork. This unknown person could see all the information about magical beasts. In order to summon him, Xiao Xinyu only needed to think of him. If he completely did everything he said, Xiao Xinyu would quickly reach the top. As it turned out, he couldn't appear earlier just because Xiao Xinyu didn't have enough strength. And when he made a contract with the two beasts, the time had come. Xiao Xinyu was now much stronger, and that was why he was able to establish a connection with him. But Xiao Xinyu never received any answers about his whereabouts. As it turned out to be his consciousness, while Xiao Xinyu fainted, he decided to meet him in his consciousness. Xiao Xinyu was shocked because he didn't expect such a turn of events. It seemed like it was time for someone to wake up. In the end, Xiao Xinyu really wanted to know when the next meeting would be. But as it turned out, this voice would always be with him. Moments later, the events were transported to a room in the hospital. Xiao Xinyu couldn't understand how he ended up in the hospital if he was in a cave not long ago. Suddenly, he was brought out of his thoughts by Teacher Chen and Principal Su. They were overjoyed when they saw that the boy had finally woken up. Xiao Xinyu apologized for worrying about him. The last thing the guy remembered was that he was in a cave near a cliff. And as it turned out later, the rescue team found him not far from it. Director Su said that literally 100 meters from the place of his rescue, they found the corpse of a fire lion. She inquired in order to find out what Xiao Xinyu knew about what had happened. This made him very confused. He actually knew perfectly well what the matter was about, but he decided to lie. He said that since he was unconscious, he definitely couldn't see what was happening, because a guy with 1 star would obviously not be able to defeat such a beast. Director Su couldn't understand what was wrong with her suspicions about the guy. Principal Su told him that the academy would thoroughly investigate and look into the situation. He smilingly agreed with her and was very happy that she believed everything he said. And on top of that, he and Xian obtained an S+ level in the trial and accomplished setting a new record in the Azure Dragon Academy. The freshman ranking competition was coming soon, and so Xian needed to prepare for it in order to win. They gave Xiao Xinyu all the news he needed and hurriedly left his room. And just a few seconds later, something on his hand shone with a bright light. A moment later, his second beast Dailu appeared in front of him. He clearly hadn't expected to see her here, and was worried that she would disappear somewhere after such an incident. Dailu informed him that after the attack, he had received many wounds, and that was why he had lost consciousness. And since he had donated his red liquid to save her, she couldn't mercilessly abandon him. She heard some unknown voices that saw the cave and wanted to check it out. As it became known, the rescue team arrived at the scene of the incident very timely. Dailu didn't want to be seen, and that's why she decided to hide. It was the only solution to the situation. Dailu heard everything he talked about with Director Su. In the cave, he informed her that it was an accident. But after these conversations, she was no longer sure of his story. After a few minutes, Xiao Xinyu informed her that he knew everything about the situation perfectly, and it was definitely not an accident. Xiao Xinyu had seen Wang Yang's face in the bushes when he fell from the cliff, and he knew exactly who had caused such an accident. Because of this, Xiao Xinyu was very angry. He was going to take revenge on Wang Yang in any way he could, because he wasn't going to get away with it this time. Wang Yang must be punished for everything that was done to him. The events unfold in the office of the Vice President of the Azure Dragon Academy, Wang. He is sitting quietly on the couch and sipping his coffee. Moments later, Wang Yang suddenly burst into his office. He is the son of the Vice President, and it seems he came to him with bad news. Wang Yang couldn't understand why things didn't happen the way they planned. Mr. Wang ordered his son to calm down immediately. Wang Yang was behaving completely inappropriately. All the boy could say was that it was very bad. What could have happened to make the guy panic so much? Wang Yang immediately shoved the phone in his father's face and showed him the current news. They said that not long ago, there would be an accident at the Yin Nanshan trial at the Azure Dragon Academy. One of the talented participants had tragically fallen off a cliff. But luckily it turned out to be a false alarm, and the rescue team found the guy yesterday. He was alive and well, and received the necessary medical attention. Wang Yang was wildly furious, He couldn't believe that Xiao Sinyu was actually alive. As it turned out, the two of them had come up with a cunning plan to destroy Xiao Sinyu. Unfortunately for them, their plan didn't work, and they couldn't do everything they had planned. Wang Yang was sure that after such an incident, Xiao Sinyu would take revenge on them. And on top of that, at this moment, Xiao Sinyu was currently under the protection of the Heavenly Guild. But Mr. Wang couldn't understand what this incident in this trial had to do with them. After all, they supposedly didn't do anything. Because even if Xiao Sinyu were to suspect them, then he had absolutely no evidence. Wang Yang was very worried about the situation and asked his father what they would do next. But Mr. Wang was completely calm and informed him that it would be more logical to do nothing at all. And action was their only option in this situation. And just a moment later, Mr. Yang changed his point of view. His face instantly turned insidious, and he decided that they would not stop until Xiao Sinyu was finally killed. In that instant, Wang threw a thing at his son and ordered him to finally do whatever it takes to eliminate Xiao Sinyu. A few minutes later, events take us to the family apartment. Xiao Sinyu is lying quietly resting on the bed. Suddenly, his phone rings. He obviously didn't expect anyone to bother him after such an incident, so the call has left him confused. And as soon as Xiao Sinyu picked up the phone call, there was a very joyful shriek on the other end of the handset. This guy was very happy that Xiao Sinyu was still alive. He was sure that a blessing had descended from the heavens themselves. It was unreal. Xiao Sinyu had returned safely, and had also won first place in the Nanshan competition. He informed Xiao Sinyu that he would definitely find the pest and destroy it with his own hands. Xiao Sinyu was completely shocked by this reaction of his. Did so many people suddenly start worrying about him? He was so happy about this because he hadn't felt this kind of thing in his life before. His sister had spent a good portion of her time by his hospital bedside, and the little girl was worried about him too. That phone call was loud enough. Xiao Sinyu was almost deafened by the screaming. The guy informed him that the freshman ranking competition had been postponed. And when Xiao Sinyu reached the top, he would be happy. He was confident that their friendship would last forever. After a moment, Xiao Sinyu asked for an explanation for the postponement of the bosom trial. Was it really done so that the guy could honestly recoup again? As it turned out, Xiao Sinyu's disappearance went viral in no time. The academy activated emergency protocols and launched a massive search for the guy. And as it turned out, most classes were postponed, and this list also included the freshman ranking competition. In fact, the freshman ranking competition is an annual grand event at the Azure Dragon Academy. Every single participant is eager to participate as soon as possible. As it turns out, the freshmen will be determined into groups, and the order of the competition will be determined by drawing lots. After the best 8 beast tamers are determined from among them, then they will have the main battle for the top 3 places in the academy. It would be a very intense and interesting battle that could determine the future of these freshmen. This guy also remembered to inform Xiao Sinyu not to be late for this event in any way. The guy thanked him and bid him farewell. Xiao Sinyu looked at his reflection and thought, he definitely needed to get there. If he could get a ranking spot, he would have access to the academy's resources and attention. Unlocking the skills of a beast master would require the master himself to provide the right amount of spiritual energy. And as it turned out, the higher the level of the beast master, the more spiritual energy the beast master would need. This was the unexpected turn of events that awaited the guy. As it turned out, with the resources of the Azure Dragon Academy, Xiao Sinyu would be able to increase his spiritual energy resource much faster. Because in the last case, Delu had squeezed out all of his energy to use the attack skill. And naturally, he needs to avoid a repeat of this situation. In order to finally finish off the Wang family, he will only need to rely on Delu's strength. Because she has an unrealistically powerful power, and maybe together they can achieve the desired result. And because Dailu is a really powerful beast, it consumes a huge amount of spiritual energy. As long as he doesn't have access to the academy's resources, then Xiao Sinyu needs to figure out how to do it before the freshman competition starts. Closing his eyes, Xiao Sinyu thought that perhaps he should ask all the answers to the questions specifically. As soon as he closed his eyes and thought about it, his body instantly transported him into his consciousness. This was exactly what he needed at this moment. Xiao Sinyu was actually a bit scared to do such things with his consciousness, but he had no other choice at the moment. A bright light meanwhile illuminated the guy. Suddenly, an unknown voice spoke to the guy again. Could it be that Xiao Sinyu had decided to take the shortest path to solve his problem? A huge dragon eye stared straight at him. Xiao Sinyu scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. He decided that if this voice was in his mind, why wouldn't he use such a solution? The voice decided to present its terms and make a deal with the guy. If Xiao Sinyu would help him recover his memories and recall, then he would in turn help him with his problem. Xiao Sinyu, hearing such a proposal, decided to immediately agree. He always keeps his word, and so they would help each other. The voice said that Xiao Sinyu would need to meditate deeply, and only then would he be able to penetrate his mind. It was actually a bit dangerous, but he would be able to talk to him nonetheless. The system panel displayed 3 buttons: Beast Data Research Area, Disease Analysis Area, and Store. He had conjured a similar system panel as in the guy's world, so he could use it without any difficulty. In the store, Xiao Xinyu can purchase all the items he needs. In order to ensure that Xiao Xinyu doesn't lose assignments or miss out on the most important task, the voice will give out assignments through the system panel from time to time. To earn points or other rewards, Xiao Xinyu will need to complete all tasks. In the store, Xiao Xinyu saw a dragon spirit pill and decided to click on it to find out as much information about it as possible. An option opened up in the store to find out all the information about it. As it turned out, this pill lightning fast increases a person's spiritual energy tenfold, but exactly 5 minutes later there would be a backlash, which in turn would cause a period of weakness. This pill is exactly what he needs, but he must use it with caution because the backlash will be very significant. The voice decided to give him this pill, but in the future, Xiao Xian will need to personally earn everything he needs. In order to summon the system in the future, Xiao Xinyu would need to quietly chant words such as, "The Beast Lord breaks through the void, and the Holy Shield obeys him." The voice informed him that it was time for him to rest, and if something urgent happened, the guy would now know how to summon him. Xiao Xinyu did not cross him, and informed him that he would leave him so that he could have a good rest. And there was hope in that voice. He hoped that Xiao Xinyu would definitely not disappoint him, and would do everything he promised. The events once again shifted from the guy's mind to the family headquarters. Xiao Xinyu informed his sister that he was going to leave because it was time for him to go to the academy. The sis and the little girl were very worried about Xiao Xinyu, and before he left they asked him to be very careful and take care of himself. It was today that the freshman ranking competition would happen. Xiao Xinyu wondered if the old wolf cub was thinking about him. He actually missed his beast very much, and he was sorry that things happened like this. A moment later, Xiao Xinyu saw what kind of announcement on the road. He couldn't understand what was going on. It said that the nine-tailed fox was wanted, and a reward of 3 billion would be given. There was a gold core theft in Lan Royal City, and that's how the reward lies. A moment later, the phone call rang again on Xiao Xinyu's cell phone. This guy couldn't leave him alone. He was begging everyone to vote and put a like on his posting. He really wanted Xiao Xinyu to take the first place and beat all the contestants. He was intent on everyone supporting him. He asked for everyone to like, comment, and vote for the ranking challenge participants. Xiao Xinyu was in complete shock because he clearly didn't expect such a thing, and it seems that his ears might go deaf at any given time. The events are taking place somewhere in an unfamiliar alley. Xiao Xinyu was clearly dissatisfied with something, and that was why he was cursing at Dela. Could it be that she had not told him something? This was all getting very strange. Xiao Xinyu was very angry because Dailu didn't tell him that she was wanted by the royal family. Dailu didn't understand what was the matter since she hadn't done any crime. Xiao Xinyu had never asked her about anything like that before, so she decided not to tell him. As it turns out, Dailu is a criminal that the entire royal family is looking for, and even the empress has decided to personally look for her. Couldn't she have told the guy about it? Because maybe he would have acted differently. If he regretted signing a contract with her, he could easily sell her and get a high reward for it. Xiao Xinyu had convinced her that he was now her master, and he would hope that from now on, there would be no secrets between them. Dailu didn't understand at all what to say to her in such a case. She was very confused and didn't know what to do next. And since the situation had taken such a turn, Dailu decided to say something. As it turned out, the royal family had set such a huge reward just for that. A moment later, a huge crystal appeared in her hand. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked, not expecting such a turn of events. After looking at the crystal in her hands, he couldn't even imagine what it was. After a moment, Dailu began her story. As it turned out, this crystal was one of the main treasures of the dragon clan. It was not a crystal at all, but an actual dragon tear, but only in the form of a crystal. History tells us that the sacred dragon clan left behind 3 powerful artifacts. These artifacts were in the form of a sword made of inverted scales, a dragon king's mustache, and finally a dragon's tear. As it turns out, the dragon king's whisk and the inverted scale sword are the most powerful and destructive artifacts that can be used in battle. But the dragon's tear serves as a lack of offensive capabilities. And yet it is created from the tears of 10,000 purebred dragons. This story was like magic, but it is actually nothing more than reality. And if one were to suddenly release the full strength and power of this dragon tear, it would return time and space to salvation, thus allowing him to return to the past. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked at what was coming. He couldn't even imagine that he would ever have such an opportunity. But Xiao Xinyu knew that the purebred dragon clan had died about 300 years ago. So why had they recently started appearing in their world out of nowhere? It was all very strange, and Xiao Xinyu could not find any explanation for such events. Xiao Xinyu looked at Dela because he couldn't get one question out of his head. He was very worried about what really happened during the huge pure-blood dragon annihilation battles 300 years ago. Dela looked at him with a frightened look, because she didn't really know the answer to this question herself. Just a few seconds later, Dailu was gone, but it was because someone had come and scared her away. Xiao Xinyu himself was completely shocked by what he saw. The Mu Rong family suddenly appeared in front of him. They were also shocked by what they saw because brother Xian actually thought that his sister was wrong in her speculations. He was surprised that Xiao Xinyu was able to survive such a disaster, and that was why he strictly ordered him to be careful next time. Xian Xinyu couldn't understand why her brother was reacting to the guy like that. Perhaps he was taking care of the guy in such a way. And since Xiao Xinyu had fallen off the cliff right in front of his sister, it alarmed her a lot. Xian Xinyu felt a very strong sense of guilt all this time, and so she even stopped eating. The brother remembered how he used to call his sister to eat, and she kept refusing to eat. This disturbed him very much, and he started worrying about his sister. As soon as she saw the news of Xiao Xinyu's survival, only then could she eat her food. All her worries vanished in an instant, and she ate a few extra bowls of rice that night. The girl's brother asked Xiao Xinyu to be really careful, because of him, his sister might stop eating food again. It was like an admonishment to Xiao Xinyu, and meanwhile, the girl was very embarrassed and tried to cover her brother's mouth. Xiao Xinyu had no choice but to completely agree with him, because he himself would not want to bother Xian. Very soon, the ranking tournament would begin and Xiao Xinyu offered to participate together. But Xian's brother informed him that at this moment, their relationship was not close enough for such a thing. And on top of that, he still hadn't forgotten how the guy stole the monster annihilation at his sister's trial. Xiao Xinyu realized that he was right, and he just had to stand silently. After a moment, he called out to Xian and ordered her to immediately leave with him. She was behind her brother like a stone wall, so she simply agreed and walked away. Xiao Xinyu couldn't understand at all what this guy had come up to him for then. It was all very strange, but the guy decided not to go into details, and just closed the topic to himself. The events take us to the Azure Dragon Academy. The high blue sky is illuminated by a multitude of fireworks. Bright sparks shoot off into the sky, illuminating the tower rising in the background. In the foreground are several young men with their arms raised, watching. Their gestures express enthusiasm and excitement. The presenter welcomed all the students and staff of the academy. The long-awaited ranking test is about to begin. The annual ranking competition will determine the top students of Azure Dragon Academy. All the freshmen will take turns pulling lots to determine the order of battle. After a few minutes, he asked all the freshmen to take their time and stand in line to create order in the arena. Just as suddenly, the very sinister Wang Yang appeared out of nowhere. He was quietly watching Xiao Xinyu was able to return to the Azure Dragon Academy. He couldn't believe it because he had done almost everything to destroy him. And it seems like Wang Yang was very determined this time. Anger blazing in his eyes, he was determined to see how luck would definitely be on his side this time. A moment later, someone once again pulled his colt, and Wang Yang started his movement towards the guy. Everyone was shocked when they saw the deputy principal's son in front of them. The students considered Wang Yang to be an embarrassment to the Azure Dragon Academy. They remembered very well how Xiao Xinyu had massacred him in the arena. And none of them will ever forget the fact that this guy takes advantage of his father's position and allows himself to molest girls in the library. Xiao Xinyu was able to deal with him in the arena one single time, and thus brought him down to the bottom, but he would definitely take his revenge properly. Wang Yang reached out his hand towards the chest, and just like everyone else pulled his colt. Wang Yang was determined to take real revenge, and today was the day Xiao Xinyu would pay for everything he had done. The guy held a leaf in his hands, and as it turned out his round would be the first, and the match the 7th. It was this leaf that determined that Wang Yang would fight against Xiao Xinyu. Xiao Xinyu was very worried that the readers might not support them with votes and likes. This could be because they missed the update that took place last week. Dailu herself didn't know what to do in such a situation. All hope was on the strength of the two of them and the readers. Will Wang Yang and Xiao Xinyu fight each other again? It was definitely some kind of coincidence. Such a blowout would be in the arena again. As soon as the spectators saw on the panel who was going to fight, they were already eagerly waiting for the fight to begin. There was no way Wang Yang was going to disappoint his father. He was determined to finish what he had started and finally finish off Xiao Xinyu. He was tired of the guy getting in his way all the time, so there would only be one outcome from this. Wang Yang thought of some sort of plan in his head. He waved Xiao Xinyu caustically and said that they would see each other at the main arena soon. Wang Yang's determination was now more than enough. It infuriated him that Xiao Xinyu had hurt his pride many times. He decided that he definitely needed the most real revenge. Wang Yang threatened the guy that he would easily destroy Xiao Xinyu's beast. But such threats didn't scare the guy at all. Since his strength had reached a good level at the moment, he definitely didn't need to worry about it. Now, he could just as easily smash Wang Yang on the ground and finally finish him off. After a while, the event will take place in the arena. This is where the greatest and most interesting fight will take place. Both guys were already looking forward to the start of the fight, and each of them was ready to destroy the other. Xiao Xinyu remembered all the mischief Wang Yang had done earlier. This hurt the guy's pride a lot, and he decided that no one would be allowed to treat him like this. Yang Shou and Xian were just like the spectators in the stands. Xian was eagerly waiting for Xiao Xinyu to win. They were cheering for him with all their hands. Yang Shou couldn't help but notice his sister's gaze that had been directed at Xiao Xinyu the entire time. In fact, She didn't even expect her brother to be able to notice it. Yang Shou asked his sister what she was even talking about. What was she feeling by looking so intently at Xiaoxinyu? After a moment, the girl said that after Xiaoxinyu returned, his aura and energy was much stronger than before. Director Su was very worried about Xiaoxinyu. She couldn't even imagine what the guy had actually gone through in the past few days. She cheered for the guy with all her hands and decided that he really deserved every victory he got. A few minutes later, the announcer announced the Round 1 Stage 7, namely Xiaoxinyu versus Wang Yang. Immediately after the announcer's announcement, they could start their duel. The announcer ordered them to start their fight immediately. He described all the events in the arena so colorfully and vividly that the audience loved him very much. The work of this presenter was not less interesting than the others. After a moment, we can see how the arena in an instant unfolded a tense scene of confrontation between two determined guys. Both guys' eyes were burning. They were filled with determination, and each of them was hungry for an unrealistically fast victory. The sound of the tense air, the rustle of movements, the sparks of their will, everything merged into an epic confrontation where each participant was willing to put everything on the line. As soon as the guys practically faced each other, they both decided to act immediately. Xiaoxinyu summoned his Black Fang, and Wang Yang summoned his powerful Ice Leopard at the same second. On the electronic screen, all the spectators could see the characteristics of the beasts that would fight in the arena. The information about the beasts had been discovered by the taming tester, and now everyone could check their own. Xian became very excited as soon as she saw the electronic screen. For some reason, this aura seemed rather strange to her. The aura of an ordinary wolf was completely different from that of a rank 1 level 1 beast. Xian actually felt an energy much stronger than the one represented on the panel. But the beast manual had by no means ever made a mistake, so the Hell Wolf's rank was equal to the first level. Seeing such a thing, and analyzing all the information, Xian thought very hard. This was really strange. Was Xiaoxinyu really up to something? And now she realized that it seems the guy had deliberately suppressed the rank of his Hell Beast in order to break through much further. It is this battle that he wants to use to further advance his beast. Meanwhile, in the main arena of the Azure Dragon Academy, the events were only gaining momentum. The Ice Leopard made several attacks towards the Hell Wolf, and now it was trying to attack him again. But the Hell Wolf used its Hellfire skill to fight back and fend off another attack. He was easily able to do so, his strength so strong that he threw the leopard a considerable distance away from himself. The leopard realized that he needed to act as soon as possible. He didn't give his opponent time to relax, and so he instantly used the freeze skill. As it turned out, Xiaoxinyu and his beast were definitely not simple opponents. They instantly used the stealth skill. They managed to hide in the shadows, and the Ice Leopard's freeze did not work. A few minutes later, heavy frost and snow flew into the arena. The spectators held their breath and watched the events that were happening in the main arena of the academy with interest. Literally at the same instant, it was as if a cold winter had enveloped the entire space. People couldn't understand what was really happening in the arena. They literally immediately felt unrealistically cold, and shivers enveloped their bodies. While the leopard was trying to find the Hell Wolf in the shadows, a considerable amount of time passed. And just a few moments later, the Hell Wolf appeared before him. These two beasts were unrealistically strong. After a few minutes, Xiaoxinyu ordered the Hell Wolf to use a skill. The Hell Wolf immediately obeyed its master, thus applying the Hell Howl skill. This howl was simply unrealistically loud and powerful. It managed to crush everything in its path. This gave him a good privilege, and he was able to easily throw the Ice Leopard away from him. The Ice Leopard clearly did not expect this turn of events. The spectators were watching with great excitement. The atmosphere around thickened, as if the air was saturated with tension, and unforgettable red light spilled over the background, reminiscent of the shimmering air or symbolizing the hidden humidity. This light, like the glow of a flame or dangerous energy, envelopes the audience, emphasizing their different processes in what is happening. The host himself was in complete shock at what was happening. This duel was very exciting, and every minute it became more and more interesting to watch them. It was a true battle of ice and fire. A moment later, Xiaoxinyu ordered his beast to use the Silent Claw skill. The guy was absolutely delighted with himself and his beast. Their strength was indeed constantly increasing. Everyone was completely shocked. None of the spectators had expected Xiaoxinyu to use the Dark Attribute skill. As it turned out, this particular skill had a very strong, powerful attack. The Hell Wolf increased its speed at the same second. A very dark energy hung in the space. It was just an incredible sight. There was an incredible silence around the battle. Everyone froze and watched the battle in the arena. Black Fawn was instantly near the Ice Leopard and used this attack. As soon as the Silent Hell Wolf Claw attacked the Ice Leopard, its attacks were blocked in an instant. Now the Ice Leopard could not use any of its skill. The spectators began to mock the leopard and its owner. They thought Wang Yang was as stupid as his beast. This action was really impressive, and the spectators of the grandstand all appreciated it. Wang Yang clearly did not expect this turn of events. Could Xiaoxinyu really think that the guy would admit his defeat so easily like this? There was no way Wang Yang was going to give up. He was determined to complete and execute his plan. Looking at Wang Yang's face, one could immediately realize that the guy was up to no good. He made a motion with 2 fingers and looked at his beast. A few moments later, the ice leopard had some sort of magic pill in its mouth. And at the same instant, the ice leopard starts to instantly transform and awaken the strong beast within it. The beast's gaze is full of rage, but behind it there is cold calculation and predatory primitiveness. Bared fangs, from which ice crystals burst out, simultaneously symbolizing his strength, as if every breath comes from them swirls of frost, ready to destroy everything. Huge fangs grew near his mouth in an instant, and the claws on his paws turned unrealistically huge. No one could understand what was beginning to happen to him. Everyone was completely shocked by what was happening. Wang Yang's cunning would play a role in this fight. The ice leopard transformed into a killing machine. He instantly became a huge and power-filled beast. It is now in the arena that the real battle for survival will begin. The ice leopard reaches the peak of his transformation, transforming into an icy embodiment of the elements, his body shrouded in glowing ice crystals, as if nature itself had given him armor that could withstand any blow. These shards glisten with a cold blue light, flying in different directions, creating a burst of primordial energy. His claws, now shrouded in ice, seem to become an extension of his essence. Each movement of the beast leaves a trail of ice behind it, freezing everything it touches. Around his neck and chest, his icy crown of giant crystals blossoms like a crown, emphasizing his status as the king of the elements. Around the beast, ice fragments scatter like lightning in a storm, emphasizing the epicness of his awakening. It is the moment when the world freezes before the majesty of true power. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked by what was happening. He was completely unable to understand how in such a short time, the ice leopard had transformed into such a strong beast in an instant. Such an action made Xiao Xinyu think very hard. Could it be that the ice leopard had used some kind of forbidden drug that gave it tremendous but short-lived strength? Xiao Xinyu understood perfectly what Wang Yang had done to his beast. As it turned out, Wang Yang had forced his leopard to take the forbidden substances to be able to defeat someone like Xiao Xian. Wang Yang in turn wasn't going to respond to this because he didn't care about Xiao Xinyu's opinion. And even regardless of the situation, this guy would still do as he pleased. After a few minutes, Wang Yang ordered the ice leopard to finally switch to using the ice blade storm skill. A moment later, the ice leopard obeyed its master and did so. It aimed the ice storm directly at the Hell Wolf. This sight was simply indescribable and breathtaking. The ice blocks managed to hit the Hell Wolf in no uncertain terms. What would happen next, and who would actually win this fight? Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked by what was happening, but he also decided to use stealth to win. As soon as Xiao Xinyu saw that the Hell Wolf was a bit stunned, he decided to immediately summon him to him. Wang Yang was in an unreal rage. His body was completely racked with anger. He was more eager than anyone to take revenge on Xiao Xinyu. And as it turned out, this was far from the end of his leopard attacks. A moment later, Wang Yang ordered the ice leopard to use the split ice hammer skill. The icy flame seemed to envelop the entire battle arena. Once again, the attack was directed at the Hell Wolf. What to do in such a situation, Xiao Xinyu needed to avoid the leopard strike so that the Hell Wolf would not be destroyed. The beast unleashes all of its indomitable power, and the world around shudders at its greatness. Shards of ice sparkle like stars, decorating the space with a cold blue light. The icy torrent crashes into the ground or target with crushing power. The symbols depicted next to the impact scream its power, and sound in your head like the rumble of bursting ice. Anything caught in the epicenter will inevitably be obliterated into oblivion. The exploding ice crystals create a blinding light similar to the northern lights that matches the entire space. The spectators in the stands were in complete shock at what was happening. They couldn't understand at what exact moment the ice leopard became so powerful. This could definitely serve as a bad sign for Xiao Xinyu. Wang Yang had let Xiao Xinyu gain victory last time. His last time together with him in the arena had ended unsuccessfully. But now, it was finally time to show his true strength and finally deal with Xiao Xinyu. He said it with such pride. Vice President Wang was sitting together with Director Su. They were also carefully watching the events that were happening in the arena. Mr. Wang was confident that his son's strength could easily be compared to Xiao Xinyu's. Director Su was clearly not fazed by the situation. She had noticed how the ice leopard had suddenly become so strong. Therefore, she was certain that this was serving as an insidious plan by father and his sibling. She was well aware that the situation Xiao Xinyu was in right now was truly grim. With such speeds, not only would the Hell Wolf lose, but he might actually suffer huge wounds and injuries. This kind of attacks and the leopard's strength could really do a lot of damage. A moment later, the ice leopard performed another attack on the Hell Wolf. Xian was watching the events in the arena very carefully. She was very worried about Xiao Xinyu. With all her hands, she longed for him to win. The situation in the arena was becoming more and more tense. All the spectators were dutifully watching the events that were happening in the arena. They all hoped that Xiao Xinyu would definitely have the opportunity to change the outcome in his favor. Xiao Xinyu was very cunning and thoughtful. Could Wang Yang really think that he could give up and lose to him so easily like this? No way. There was no way Xiao Xinyu was going to give up. After the Yinan trial, the guy's strength had become much stronger, and he would definitely surprise all the spectators in the stands. After a few minutes, Xiao Xinyu felt his Hell Wolf. The wolf couldn't really understand what was in store for him in this situation, but the guy assured that he would sort it out. A few minutes later, the Hell Wolf used the Fire Lotus skill at Xiao Xinyu's command. This was something new, and no one expected such a turn of events. Wang Yang was completely shocked by what was happening. He clearly didn't expect Xiao Xinyu to have new abilities. He ordered the Ice Leopard to immediately run away, or else the Fire Lotus might strike him completely. But as it turned out, he was unable to do so. The escape failed. The Hell Wolf immediately used the Fire Lotus skill. This sight conveyed all of its might and power. The professor was completely delighted by Xiao Xinyu's action. He truly understood that this guy had great potential, which was why he was so thoroughly worried about him. Principal Su was also completely shocked. Only the most advanced beast had the right to use such a skill, which was why this could only mean one thing: that Xiao Xinyu was truly talented and had a great future. Mr. Wang was simply furious. How could he manage to grow at such a tremendous speed? It was for this reason that he simply had no right to let this guy live. He might become a very big obstacle for his son's future in the future. The audience was in complete shock at what was happening in the arena. These events were truly exciting. Xiao Xinyu had just used a fully developed fire element beast skill. The wolf guy was still in his original transformation, but in such a short period of time, he had managed to master such an advanced technique. As it turned out, if one were to judge the guy's attacks and skills, he would easily be able to surpass last year's winner of the Azure Dragon Academy. The Fire Lotus was indeed a strong and powerful skill. It was simply unbelievable. A few minutes later, the Fire Lotus struck the Ice Leopard. It was at that moment that everyone realized that Xiao Xinyu would become the main genius of the Azure Dragon Academy. The time had come when such an epic battle had finally reached its conclusion. The ground around was split open and covered in glistening scarlet cracks, from which magma was oozing out. These are the aftermath of the recent incident resulting from the destructive power that played out in this place. The orange lights contrast with the cold tones of the beast, as if to symbolize victory, warmth over frost, life over destruction. At the center of attention lies the beast, previously indomitable and final, now defeated and motionless. The audience was in complete shock at what was happening. None of them had expected such a conclusion to the fight. The host decided to immediately announce the winner of the fight. The hopes of all the spectators were only directed at Xiao Xinyu. He was up to the task and managed to defeat the terrifying and evil Wang Yang. Xiao Xinyu was the true winner in this fight. The spectators clapped and cheered that the guy was able to defeat him. The Fire Lotus Inferno really turned out to be an unrealistically powerful skill. It was now that they considered Xiao Xinyu to be a true ruthless monster in battle. The host ordered everyone to immediately turn their attention to the electronic display. As it turned out, the characteristics of the Hell Wolf had been changed on it. In such a short period of time, it had managed to go from the first level to the third rank. This was something that could already tell of many and significant changes within the guy. Xiao Xinyu had managed to realize an indescribable record. No tamer had ever managed to do this in such a short period of time before. Wang Yang was completely shocked at what was happening. Had his next fight once again ended in defeat? Since the beginning of the Azure Dragon Academy's freshman ranking foundation, this was the first time when a beast managed to rise 2 ranks higher, and it happened in just one fight. And the one who managed to do so is indeed a very talented beast tamer. Black Fang howled very loudly, telling everyone that he had managed to defeat the leopard. The events were still going on in the arena. The leopard was lying breathlessly in the center of the arena. Xiao Xinyu praised his beast, for he had really fought the leopard perfectly today. When there was a trial on Yinan Mountain, the Black Fawn was hunting a huge number of magical animals. It was at that moment that he encountered an attack from a lava tiger. After such a trial of life, Xiao Xinyu's beast had actually made very great progress. His skills had improved a lot, and he had learned many new things. This really gave him great strength and power to defeat such opponents. Xiao Xinyu used a great skill to face such a strong leopard. He was able to embarrass the leopard and block its attacks. Even without looking at the transformation into a strong leopard, the Black Fawn was able to overpower it in this arena. The judges sat and watched carefully. The people in the arena needed proof of Xiao Xinyu's victory. Everyone was eagerly waiting for all the results to be announced. Xiao Xinyu looked at Mr. Wang carefully, as his reaction to all of this was the most violent. I wonder what this father and son couple was up to this time. Xiao Xinyu decided to watch carefully to see what he would pull out next. Mr. Wang started shouting at the principal, and said that the rules of the trial stipulated that one must stop at the point of contact. When it is clear that the leopard has circled, it is not real evidence of what is happening. All the judges who were watching decided to make a decision to immediately expel Xiao Xinyu from the academy. They were well aware that he was ruthless and very dangerous in battle. Everyone said in a voice that this guy's character was very problematic, and he was causing too many problems for the academy. Principal Sue ordered everyone to shut up and said that the academy had no right to give a verdict without an investigation. Once they do the investigation, then she will give everyone those desired explanations. Until the moment the whole truth is revealed, whoever dares to frame Xiao Xinya will be punished very severely. She will not allow such a thing to happen in her academy. Literally at this very second, Principal Sue called the guards over. She then ordered the leopard's body to be brought in and allowed the doctor to do an autopsy to explain all the details of its death. A team of the best doctors were hard at work on the autopsy of the leopard. They examined all the parts of his body very carefully. There could not be any lies in this incident. Director Sue and the others were watching the arena carefully. After a few minutes, the director turned to the doctor to find out all the arguments he had made during the autopsy of the leopard. After a few minutes, the doctor carefully examined the body and informed everyone that as it turned out the internal spilling of red liquid was indeed caused by the Hellfire Lotus. Director Sue was simply stunned at this kind of reasoning. As it turned out, Mr. Wong had thought of bribing the academy's doctor beforehand. He was well aware that such an event could easily happen. He went to the headmaster and informed him that there could be no mistake because even the doctor was saying such thoughts. Xiao Xinyu suddenly jumped into their conversation because he really wanted to know the truth. Who was really the culprit who did the leopard's demise? Xiao Xinyu informed everyone that his Infernal Lotus skill is an attack that burns the soul of a beast. But here, it was clear to a fool that the leopard died in the case of an internal outpouring of red liquid. One of the judges supported the guy, because he obviously had no need to destroy his opponent so violently. Even more so, everyone understood very well that soul attacks couldn't cause physical damage in any way. Xiao Xinyu turned to the doctor, thus trying to catch him in a lie. Was his diagnosis really completely accurate? At this moment, the doctor's face changed a lot, and it seems that something definitely scared him. Xiao Xinyu walked closer to him and whispered some very interesting information in his ear. He informed him that if he wasn't going to ruin his career as a doctor for a small profit, he should think carefully before speaking. Wouldn't Mr. Wang just get away with it this time? Xiao Xinyu informed the principal that these are very serious accusations, and that is why he personally asked to take an analysis of the leopard's red fluid. The whole situation should be scrutinized before drawing conclusions. The principal supported the guy and ordered the doctors to do everything as soon as possible. About 10 minutes had passed since the analysis started. The doctors meanwhile were diligently doing all their work. The doctor approached the director to report the cause of the leopard's death. He was very much agitated, and so he started stammering. This infuriated her very much, and she ordered him to reveal the whole truth immediately. The doctor hesitated a lot, but eventually he informed everyone that the leopard's death was due to taking an insanity pill. This was just an unrealistic revelation to everyone present. Wang Yang ordered the announcer to immediately stop slandering his name. No matter how scary the doctor was, he still told the whole truth. The judges were completely shocked by everything that was happening. Wang Yang fell on his knees in front of the director and tried to explain to him that he had in no way given his leopard any pills. The doctor immediately showed the director a paper and said that it was a confirmation that the leopard had taken insanity pills. It was the kind of pill that causes beasts to enter an insane state, thus increasing strength, but everything would eventually backfire. But Director Sue had all the proof on his hands that the leopard had actually taken such a pill. Would the guy continue to resist his actions? All the judges began to immediately condemn the guy. Is the son of the vice president really capable of such a ruthless action? How could he even give his beast such a forbidden substance? Didn't he realize what would happen in the end? Wang Yang fell on his knees in front of his father and begged him to save him from all punishments. Mr. Wang didn't even know what to say to his son. He decided to still try to ask the principal to give his son a second chance. She decided to immediately remind Mr. Wang that not only was he a father, but he was also the vice president of the Azure Dragon Academy. And if he suddenly intends to cover up his son's crime, the two of them are free to leave the Azure Dragon Academy grounds. Such lying scoundrels definitely have no place in her academy. She will not tolerate lying for anything. Mr. Wang was completely shocked, because he clearly didn't expect such a reaction from Principal Sue. He realized that if he continued to confront the principal, he would definitely be dragged into this incident as well. She had announced to everyone that Wang Yang had broken all the rules of the Azure Dragon Academy and had given his beast an insanity pill. It was for this reason that this guy was now completely expelled from the Azure Dragon Academy. Wang Yang was simply horrified at what was happening. He didn't expect that even his father would confirm that he would be expelled from the academy. He was sure with all his might that his father would in any case save his situation and cover up the whole matter. Mr. Wang had told him that the insanity pills were an irrefutable fact, and for now, they would leave it as the headmaster said. They have absolutely no choice in this situation, so they have to compromise. But he promised his son that he would definitely avenge everyone for him. After a few minutes, Mr. Wang called the security guards of the academy and ordered them to remove his son from the Azure Dragon Academy. Wang Yang started screaming and tried to break free, but all his attempts were in vain. And now it's finally over. The ordeal has come to an end. And now on the screen, Everyone could see the top 8 students of the Azure Dragon Academy. Xiao Xinyu, of course, stood in second place. This was not a bad result for him. Xiao Xinyu appeared to be a really strong opponent out of all the freshman classes. He hardly has any special strength, yet he managed to get into the top 8 still, and ended up in second place. Xian and her brother didn't expect this turn of events at all. It was really quite surprising. The brother informed his sister that since the guy had stolen a very large amount of annihilation from her at the Yin Nanshan trial, he just had to take revenge on the guy the next time they met. Because in fact, he is always willing to stand up for his own sister. But suddenly, his sister's reply completely dumbfounded him. She informed him that there was no need for him to do so, because she wants to personally win the battle against him. She then decided to scrutinize the ranking table and come up with a plan of action. Just as suddenly, that same shouting friend Xiao Xinyu appeared out of nowhere. He was eagerly waiting to congratulate the guy on his victory. He had indeed managed to enter the ranking of the top 8 tamers of this academy. Xiao Xinyu decided to calm him down a bit, because he himself was not very surprised by this result. But his friend decided that they were obligated to rejoice, as they should, because he was the best. Mr. Wang was simply furious at what was happening, because he certainly did not expect such a turn of events. He was already preparing revenge for the guy in his mind, so he shouldn't be too happy, because something unknown and dangerous was waiting for him soon. He decided to think about whether the guy would really be happy once he got home and saw everything that was going on. A cunning plan had been brewing in Mr. Wang's mind for a long time. Xiao Xinyu slowly and joyfully walked to his home. He had really defeated the guy in the previous trial very well. He was happy that he could finally go home after all the events. Suddenly, when he approached the apartment, he saw that the front door was broken. Such events really threw him into a state of shock. He really could not understand what had happened in his home. He started calling for his sister very loudly, but to his regret, no one came. Xiao Xinyu was very confused. Suddenly, after a few minutes, his little sister appeared in front of him. She was very scared. Xiao Xinyu still couldn't understand what really happened at his house. She decided to immediately inform the guy that his adult sister had been kidnapped by the masked man. But he didn't just leave for nothing. He left behind some unknown letter. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked at what was happening. Xiao Xinyu tried to comfort the little girl and assured her that their sister would definitely be fine. The letter said that if Xiao Xinyu wanted to get his sister back, he had to come to Yinan Mountain. The guy decided to immediately rush to the meeting place. He arrived at the very same Yinan Mountain. Did someone really dare to touch his sister? Xiao Xinyu was furious at what was happening. He really didn't understand who could do such a thing. After a few minutes, when he reached the top, he saw his own sister sitting under a tree. He was so happy to see her, and the most important thing was that she should be unharmed. Suddenly, some unknown man appeared in front of him. He was dressed in a black robe, and he was wearing a hood. The outline of his face seemed quite familiar to the boy. He ordered the guy not to yell because his sister was in perfect health and safety. Xiao Xinyu ordered him to immediately let his sister go. And the hooded man was shocked. Doesn't the guy want to find out who this kidnapper of his sister is? Xiao Xinyu started to analyze the recent events that happened in his life. The only family that constantly offends him is Wang Yang's family. Did he really have the guts to kidnap a person? Xiao Xinyu already knew that it was Wang Yang's father who was the real kidnapper of his sister. Basically, Mr. Wang perfectly understood that Xiao Xinyu would quickly guess about him. Oh, if the fellow was his son, he would gladly train him to become a powerful beast tamer in the entire dragon nation. He would definitely put all his efforts into it. Xiao Xinyu couldn't understand the reason why he was doing this to him. But unfortunately for him, Xiao Xinyu is not his son, and moreover, he had done a very bad thing to his son. As it turned out, the guy really did cause great harm and great pain to Wang Yang. And that was the reason why Xiao Xinyu simply had to die for all the deeds he had done. A few minutes later, he summoned the power of the earth and the keeper of the stone. And literally at the same instant, a huge bear appeared in front of him. A huge fatal demon titan descended right towards them. As it turned out, his stone was a demon bear, and it was a royal grade beast. Mr. Wang stood proudly in front of the guy and was happy that everything was going according to his plan. He could easily stay in a dominant state forever. This beast is free to use all his skills, thus nullifying the enemy's control abilities every time. According to the master, this beast is really powerful. This situation was very funny, because a 1-star tamer against a king-class beast would definitely not be able to win. Xiao Xinyu's life should end right here and now. He absolutely doesn't have a single chance to survive. But it seemed Xiao Xinyu was completely on a roll, and such a thing would definitely not scare him. He was confident that he could easily disappoint the vice president. Once again, things were not as simple as they should be. This only made Mr. Wang laugh. Would the guy really want to send his beast to such an easy death? It would only be able to serve as the easiest appetizer for the bear. After a few minutes, Xiao Xinyu informed him that no one even realized that the guy had far more than one beast. And it was at this moment that he decided to summon another one of his beasts. Finally, Lila's turn has come, and she can unleash and show what she can do. A very powerful aura instantly filled the space around them. This was definitely an unexpected turn of events. After a few minutes, Mr. Wong seemed to be scared out of his wits. He began to feel such a terrifying aura on him that he didn't even realize what was about to happen. After a few minutes, Lilu appeared in front of him. She was very curious as to the reason why the guy had summoned her this time. Had he interrupted her beautiful dream again? This beast lord had summoned her, and now he must think about how he would make up for it. A moment later, Xiao Xinyu ordered her to destroy the bear that stood in front of him. It seemed to be the easiest thing for her to do. She hoped that once she was done, she would be able to fall back into her beautiful sleep. Xiao Xinyu had promised her that if she really did this, she would be able to easily sleep for as long as she needed. She was very cute in appearance, but she actually possessed unreal strength. Mr. Wong was not in the least bit frightened. He knew very well that he needed to act as soon as possible, because this beast's aura was indeed very strong, and he had fully experienced it. No matter how scared he was now, he must finally finish what he had started. The bear, clutching its weapon, swiftly flies forward, surrounding bright light and flames. His movement seems decisive as it delivers a powerful blow. Events unfold rapidly. This moment seems slow to demonstrate strength. The hero puts out his best, and his opponent answers him with an equally powerful rebuff. Here the facial expressions, if they last, convey all the drama and determination of both sides. The bear comes out of hiding, showing his power. His face looks menacing, jaws open in a threatening gesture. The weapon he clutches glistens in the night, like a symbol of destruction. Every detail from the menacing eyes to the massive body emphasizes that this is not just a beast, probably a magical or cursed creature with intelligence and power. The panel gives a moment of climax where the bear reveals its strength and power. After a few minutes, Mr. Wong realized that it was the same fox. Has the guy really contracted the beast he's been searching for all over the country? It was indeed a royal-grade beast, a fox with 9 tails. This was simply outrageous. Did the guy really have the right to contract with such a criminal? This beast is searched for by the entire country, and what they did is an unreal offense. Mr. Wong was completely shocked at what was happening. He couldn't even imagine that this would happen. Once the guy summoned this beast, it could only mean one thing. There was no way Xiao Xinyu would let the master leave this place alive. He intends to destroy him, and finally put an end to this family. As it turned out, the guy was also quite cunning, and he was tired of letting them down every incident. Mr. Wong was just furious at what was happening. How dare this schoolboy do such a thing? He wouldn't give up under any circumstances. He couldn't let himself die, because no one else could protect his son. Wong was a 6-star tamer of all beasts. The bear was filled with rage. He was also determined to finish everything he started and fulfill all the instructions of his tamer. After a few moments, he prepared to deliver a crushing blow and finally finish everyone off. But it seems his attempt was unsuccessful. I wonder what the outcome of this fight will be. Who will actually win? On Nanshan Mountain, the events were also still developing very rapidly. Xiao Xinyu's sister was practically exhausted lying near a tree. As soon as Mr. Wong saw the beast that Xiao Xinyu had summoned, he was shocked. But it didn't surprise him much, because even no matter what kind of beast he wielded, he was still a 1-star beast lord. He didn't care at all about the fact that the guy now possessed a beast like the 9-tailed fox. After a few minutes, Mr. Wong finally decided to spring into action. Now he could finally show the guy what a huge difference there was between their ranks. Mr. Wong's strength was indeed very powerful, but that didn't change the fact that he had been a mean person all his life. Literally at this very instant, Mr. Wong unleashed his strength outwards. He was finally able to set things up the way he had wanted for a long time. That time of reckoning had come and everyone would get what they deserved. As a father, he couldn't let this guy go unpunished. A few minutes later, the bear turned into a huge and powerful beast. The beast clutched a heavy weapon in its paws, probably symbolizing its indomitable nature and readiness to fight. The blazing flames swirling around, as if alive, give the scene dynamics and the feeling that the personification of power and destruction is in front of us. His figure is full of rage and power, red-hot flames bursting out of control, surrounding him like an energy vortex that recognizes no barrier. A flash of light and heat from the center of the creature seemed to tear space apart, creating a ripple effect. Bright red and white flashes of fire framed the figure, forming blades of fire that seemed to cut through the air. The energy around him resembled a hurricane, and the clouds of flames lived in a chaotic dance, emphasizing the power and destructiveness of this moment. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked by what was happening. As soon as he saw the dark mist near the bear, he realized in that instant that this beast belonged to the dark element. As it turned out, these creatures evolved due to consuming the red liquid of humans or other beasts. And after that, Xiao Xinyu realized that it was Mr. Wong who had been behind the disappearance of the low-ranked beasts in Longyan City all along. Because he remembered very well that the beast lords had reported their beasts missing for 5 years, but no one had ever been able to find them. This speculation made Mr. Wong laugh very hard. He thought that to die at the hands of a stone demon bear would be everyone's good fortune. Mr. Wong was not interested in anything but himself. He was looking for some kind of benefit for himself and his family and everything. Just a few minutes later, Xiao Xinyu saw him wearing the Red Skull Guild badge. This was a very famous guild that specialized in dark element beast lords. Everyone around was very afraid of this guild, and many people called them villains, because that was what people associated with them. As it turned out, Xiao Xinyu was well aware of them, and knew that they were part of the 5 majestic dark elemental beast guilds. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked by what he saw. Doesn't anyone in the academy know that the dean of the academy is secretly serving the Red Skull Guild from everyone? If the world were to find out about this situation, at the very least, Principal Su would definitely change his opinion of this family. From now on, once he revealed his true identity, then he has no right to let Xiao Xinyu leave this mountain alive. Lilu began to be very worried about the master. Since Xiao Xinyu didn't have enough energy right now, she wouldn't be able to use any martial techniques. But even despite this situation, the guy always had his own plan of action. No one could understand how he always found a way out of the situation. Xiao Xinyu would never start a battle until he was sure of his victory. The guy was holding the very pill that the unknown voice in his subconscious had given him earlier. After a few minutes, he didn't even hesitate to immediately pop it into his mouth. Perhaps this was the substance that would help him win this battle. Xiao Xinyu stood in the center of the elements, engulfed in a whirlwind of incredible power that surged outwards from his being. Every cell in his body was screaming with tension, but he couldn't stop. It was a moment of transformation, a moment when the boundaries of the world collapsed and he became something more. The lights and lines around him emphasized the storm of energy that was lifting him to new heights. Mr. Wang still couldn't calm down. His main goal was to finally finish the guy off. He was 100% sure that his life would end here and now. Revenge had completely consumed the man, and he couldn't see anything around him. Xiao Xinyu decided not to delay and ordered Lilu to immediately move into action. He had already matured a plan on how to start attacking Mr. Wang. Lilu was on full alert, and that was what gave her the permission to do whatever he wished. A few minutes later, Lilu engaged the demon bear in battle. The bear's body was engulfed in streams of fire. Its power was very strong indeed. But despite having such a terrifying ally, they still decided to engage in this terrifying battle. A moment later, a very violent transformation began to take place. The 9-tailed fox began to transform into a more powerful beast this very second. Xiao Xinyu only had to give out orders and execute the next plan of action. Literally immediately, the Lilu fox had transformed into a very powerful beast. It possessed quite a huge amount of powerful attacks and skills. The dragon eye seemed to subdue the vixen and gave her the opportunity to unleash all of her powers outward. Lilu was fully prepared for this powerful battle. She was going to stand up for the guy with all her might. This sight was something incredible and exciting. The bear was definitely also ready for this battle and was waiting for a command from his master. In just a few minutes, they would fight in this powerful battle. 2 unrealistically powerful beasts would confront each other. Suddenly some bright beam came out of the dragon's eye and was directed straight towards them. Neither of them had definitely expected this turn of events. Mr. Wang was pierced by the beam and immediately cried out in great pain. The unexpected turn of events had caught up with him, and now he might finally be finished. He couldn't believe that this was really happening to him. He was so confident in his victory that he hoped that the guild would save him unconditionally in any situation. And it seemed like the moment had come when Mr. Wang found himself in a hopeless situation, because now he really didn't know what to do next. A dark aura completely filled the entire space of Nanshan Mountain. Xiao Xinyu and Lilu managed to escape from the scene in time. It was very dangerous to be there, because it was the dark energy that had consumed Mr. Wang. Did they really succeed and finally put an end to this scoundrel? And just a few minutes later, Xiao Xinyu suddenly felt the very consequences. Previously warned about by a voice in his subconscious, the dragon spirit pill had turned into the opposite effect. The guy's eyes began to slowly close, and the picture disappeared altogether. Lilu was completely shocked by the situation. She began to worry about the guy very much. For some reason, she didn't know that after using the pill, he would suffer such consequences. She leaned over to the guy and tried to help him in any way she could. Lilu had no idea what to do in such a situation. She tried all the rescue attempts, but unfortunately nothing helped him. Suddenly, a loud bang was heard not far away. And literally at the same moment someone's hands grabbed Leela by the neck. She was very frightened, because she obviously did not expect such a turn of events. Lilu couldn't understand who was holding her neck. A shadow was falling directly on the person who grabbed her, but it was because of the shadow that Lilu couldn't see her attacker. The body and facial features were very similar to Xiao Xinwu's sister, and she seemed to be furious at what she saw. She walked closer to Lilu and brought her right to the edge of Nanshan Mountain. For some unknown reason, she was doing such an act. The situation was quite tense. Lilu instantly sensed an overwhelming, ominous aura beside her. Sister Xiao Xinyu turned out to be a rather uncomplicated girl. She looked at Lilu very viciously, and was well aware of her walk. She was very surprised that an honorable imperial being like Lilu had actually made a deal with her brother. She had not expected such a turn of events at all, and found it quite hard to believe what had happened. Why did she choose Xiao Xinyu in the first place? After all, she could have easily settled for someone else. Lilu was in complete shock. She couldn't believe what was happening. In that same instant, she sensed the mighty power of the dragons from her. Now, she didn't know exactly what to do in this situation, or what excuses to look for. Lilu had never felt such a huge surge of endless dragon energy in her life. This girl possessed very powerful forces, and that was why Lilu was very frightened. An unrealistically strong and powerful aura was emanating from the guy's sister. The entire space around them was filled with it. Xiao Sinyu's sister could do anything her soul desired to her, and so she was quite frightened around her. Lilu was well aware that she was Xiao Sinyu's sister, but how did she manage to possess such unrealistic strength? Where could she even get it from? Lilu didn't understand how Xiao Sinyu's biological sister could possess the essence of dragon power. Who on earth is she really? The guy's sister put her finger to her mouth and asked Lilu to be quiet for a while. She didn't want anyone to hear them, so they should be very quiet. Lilu had so many questions, but she decided to be quiet and did as she asked. Her sister informed her that her identity should not be of interest to Lilu. In short, Lilu would have to forget about it and not tell anyone anything. Sister didn't want anyone to know about her power. After a few minutes, Sister Xiao Sinyu decided to help him and go back to her business. She was well aware that he was hurt because he had come to protect her from an evil man. After a moment, she bent down and crouched beside Xiao Sinyu's body. She mentally tried to convince the guy that she was actually just a sister to him. Xiao Sinyu, meanwhile, was lying breathlessly on the ground. She brought her hand to his body and began to heal him with her energy. Her energy was indeed very powerful, and the powers she wielded were slowly being released outwards. Lilu was very worried about the boy, and so she slowly watched her every action. The sister continued to work on healing her brother, and Lilu still couldn't understand what had really happened to him. Sister Xiao Sinyu informed Lilu that it seems that earlier the guy had taken a potion that gave him a temporary boost. But as expected, every substance has a reverse effect, and at this moment, it had taken its toll on him. Now, he couldn't handle that kind of strength and was weakened. The nurse informed Lilu that the boy's wounds were not very significant, and so it would only take a few days for him to recover. Lilu breathed a sigh of relief and cradled the boy to her chest. She was glad to finally hear some good news for today. This kind of recovery had taken a considerable amount of strength from Sister Xiao Sinyu. After a few minutes, she suddenly got up from the ground. Lilu didn't understand what she was trying to do at this moment. She was completely unable to describe her actions in any way. No one had clearly expected this kind of end. She stood abruptly on the edge of the mountain, apparently about to do something. The silence was broken by the first chord, piercing the darkness like a ray of light. Her eyes opened, flashing with blue light, and in the same instant the space around her came alive. The air was filled with shimmering notes that swirled in a dance, obeying her movements. It wasn't just music, it was magic, woven from sound, capable of changing destinies and fighting chaos. The fire in the distance was tearing upwards, devouring the earth, but she was not distracted. Every step she took, every gesture produced new melodies, swirling into whirlpools of light. This symphony became her weapon, her shield, her voice. The world held its breath as it watched the notes turn into sound waves that could eclipse the darkness itself. It was the moment of truth, the moment when music became a force that could defeat even chaos. Even the flowers around them began to bloom. The sight was unrealistically magical and breathtaking. Lilu was in complete shock. She couldn't believe that she could actually hear the whispers of the dragon itself. Could it be that Sister Xiao Sinyu really wasn't as simple as she'd seen before? The guy meanwhile lay quietly and calmly on Lilu's chest, while she watched in amazement. As it turned out, only a purebred dragon could master this martial art. It was this unique melody that could restore any living or non-living being. This sight and ability is quite breathtaking, and it was the first time Lilu had ever seen such a thing. Sister Xiao Sinyu was very happy that she was able to erase all traces of today's battle. No one but Xiao Sinyu, his sister, and Lilu would know about today's situation. They would have to keep this secret between themselves and not tell anyone. If Lilu's memories and knowledge are to be believed, there is only one dragon in the world in a pure lineage that possesses platinum scales. Could it be that the guy's sister really belongs to him? And as it turned out, the real name of this dragon, Chaos. A few minutes later, it appeared before Lilu in all its glory. The boyfriend's sister chose to completely ignore the fact that Lilu was wanted by the Empress herself. Since she had made a contract with the guy, then she would be obligated to be faithful to him for the rest of her days. That was exactly what she had to do. Sister Xiao Sinyu was very strict and only wanted the best for her brother, so she was worried about the loyalty of the nine-tailed vixen. From this day onwards, she ordered her to obey Xiao Sinyu completely, and only then would she allow her to stay. But if she suddenly thought of betraying him, that sister wouldn't even blink an eye and would break every single one of her tails in the same instant. Lilu was very scared, and she had no choice but to silently agree with her. She actually understood what kind of strength Sister Xiao Sinyu had, and that was why she didn't cross the girl. And on top of that, Lilu must not tell anyone about her strength and personality. Sister Xiao Sinyu looked very formidable and powerful. It was very strange that she was hiding it even from her own brother, After a few hours, the events shifted to the hospital room. The guy finally woke up and was very surprised to see his sister and Director Sue in front of him. They were beside him because they were very worried about the guy's condition. The sister breathed in very happily and hugged her brother. She was so happy that the guy finally woke up and came to his senses. He actually scared her very much. Xiao Xinyu was shocked by this reaction, and his sister appeared to have hugged him too much because it became a bit difficult for him to breathe. After a few minutes, he turned to her because he really wanted to talk about what happened tonight. The sister held her breath because she was very worried about what her brother might remember. As it turned out, Xiao Xinyu had said that he had woken up last night and somehow found himself unconscious on Nanshan Mountain. But the strange thing was that she had ended up by his side and was very frightened. His sister told him that she did not understand everything that had happened, and that was why she silently carried him down the mountain as fast as she could. The sister decided to immediately take the guy to the doctor for a checkup. Xiao Xinyu was very glad that his sister didn't notice anything around him. Could it be that Lilu had managed to clean up the things going on around him so well? It was really strange that the sister didn't see anything around her, but it was probably definitely for the best. Following her sister, Principal Su came to inform the guy that he had been unconscious for 3 whole days. Because of his absence, he missed the semifinals and finals of the rookie ranking tournament. And because of that, the Mu Rong family took first and second place in the tournament's rankings. And as it turned out, Xiao Xinyu had missed his chance to win and generally participate in this ranking contest. All the freshmen had already passed this challenge, and there was definitely no turning back. Principal Su continued her story about what was happening, but Xiao Xinyu suddenly decided to stop her. He asked her a question. Was she really not curious about the reason why the guy ended up on Nanshan Mountain? Because it must be very strange that he was there at the time of the freshman competition. Could it be that she would finally find out the truth about what was going on? The events take us back to the hospital room. After the incident on Nanshan Mountain, Xiao Xinyu's strength was almost exhausted. His sister was very worried about his health, so she took him straight to the hospital. Director Su was also worried about him, and as soon as she heard about it, she rushed to his room. Director Su continued her story about what had happened a few days ago. The trial happened without Xiao Xinyu's participation. But the strangest thing was that 2 days ago, Mr. Wang, Principal Su's deputy and dean, had disappeared without a trace during the trial. Xiao Xinyu became very worried after what the principal said. Could it be that they were able to uncover them? The guy's sister meanwhile was carefully watching their dialogue. She was very adamant, and if anyone tried to harm her brother, she would destroy anyone without regrets. It was for this reason that she was closely watching everything that was happening around her beloved brother. She loved him so much that she was ready to stand up for him at any second. Director Su was completely sure of Xiao Xinyu's innocence, but even so, she had to continue investigating the case. Such an incident should not go unpunished. Meanwhile, she must find a replacement for the deputy dean position at Qinglong Academy as soon as possible. Recently, a lot of events have been happening around the Blue Dragon Academy, and that's why it's a bit tense. But despite everything going on, this is her job, and she must fulfill it. Xiao Xinyu was very surprised that even in this situation, the headmaster stood up for him. He was very pleased to see the way she treated him. It was really important in his life. Meanwhile, Sister Xiao Xinyu continued to watch the dialogue carefully. She was very curious about the reason why the principal had actually gifted them with her visit. After a few minutes, she said that she had not only come to check on Xiao Xinyu's health, but also to inform him that a new tournament was about to begin. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked. He still didn't understand how tournaments at the academy were happening at such a fast pace. He was very curious to hear the details of the upcoming tournament. As it turned out, the organizers of this grand competition were the 4 major beast taming academies. They are Qinglong Academy, Baihu Academy, Tsukiyu Academy, and Xuanwu Academy. Each of the 4 academies must send 3 freshmen to the trial to participate. Each of the participants must be very talented and possess very powerful strength. When the Azure Dragon Academy talked about the best student, Yi Shuangning usually came to mind. She was truly the best in her field. But as it turned out, in last year's trial in such a tournament, this girl was able to defeat Li Mucheng from Baihu Academy and could only manage to win 2nd place. After her story, Principal Su looked at Xiao Xinyu hopefully. She was very serious, and that was why she had asked the boy to represent Azure Dragon Academy in the competition this year. She had full confidence that he would be able to bring back glory for Qinglong Academy. She further said that the guy's participation in this trial could make up for his absence in the freshman ranking trial. Xiao Xinyu was a bit puzzled, but he was still eager to know all the details and requirements of the upcoming tournament. The first condition of the tournament was that the participant must have at least 2 beasts that they attained. Then the second condition was that the participant must have at least 2 beast taming stars. It was these 2 conditions that were the most important in the upcoming tournament. She was completely confident that in a month, Xiao Xinyu would definitely be able to fully prepare for the upcoming tournament. Director Su was willing to put everything on the line for this guy's victory. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked by her concern. Did she really have so much faith in his strength and his power? She really had a lot of respect for this guy, so she was willing to accept any decision he made. Xiao Xinyu realized that he had almost no right to choose, because he had no right to let Director Su down in any way. And on top of that, he was also very eager to see the strength of Baihu Academy that Yi Shuangning had defeated earlier. After a few minutes of his thoughts, Xiao Xinyu informed the principal to stop worrying, because he was very determined and ready to take first place in the upcoming tournament. He decided that he just had to repay Principal Su for her kindness. Xiao Xinyu was well aware that last year's participants had at least 2 tamed beasts. Even though he already had 2 tamed beasts, there was no way he would be able to summon Leela. Xiao Xinyu can't show her to anyone because she's a nationally wanted criminal and the Empress herself is looking for her. If the courtroom sees that Li Lu is his beast, it could end badly for them. And on top of all this, the Black Fang is still only at the 3rd stage of its original transformation, which is what means that for now, it will not be able to handle competition of such a rank. Xiao Xinyu stood on the Yinan Shan mountain, and he seemed to be very determined. Xiao Xinyu was determined to make his entire dream come true, and that was why today was finally the time for Black Fang to rise above everyone and move forward. Just a few minutes later, he summoned the Black Fang to him. The wolf came to his tamer at that very second. He looked very strong and powerful. A red aura hovered in space and filled everything around him. The Black Fang roared very loudly, thus letting Xiao Xinyu know that it had come to him. Xiao Xinyu had thought out a plan of action beforehand, and this was what would later serve as his victory in the tournament. After Director Su left him, then for whatever reason, he was fired from the guild. But he used his salary in the Heavenly Guild in time. Since the guy was a really important member of the Heavenly Guild, then he was able to buy many nutrients and materials that would elevate his beast's evolution. Some of the items he was able to obtain as a reward for passing the rookie trial in the Blue Dragon Academy. Even in Yi Nanshan's trial, there was a huge amount of rewards he had obtained. Xiao Xinyu presented all of his awards and materials in front of the Black Fang. He was sure that this amount of materials should be enough to enhance his beast's evolution. After a few minutes, he ordered his beast to swallow all the contents he had presented in front of him. Xiao Xinyu's beast did not even hesitate to fulfill his master's instruction, and literally in that second, it instantly began to absorb all the substances that would further help it unlock its evolution. A flash of bright light could be seen from above, as if energy was being concentrated at one point and then released in a powerful outburst. The power collapsed downwards in the form of a fiery stream surrounded by flashes of red and orange light, tearing through the air. Xiao Xinyu was very surprised from such a huge flow of energy. He tried his best to support his beast. This moment was very tense, and so Xiao Xinyu had to summon Leela. He asked her to stand in their defense because the Black Fang's successes at this moment had an increased risk of breaking out. Li Lu was completely shocked by what was happening, but nevertheless, she understood perfectly what he was talking about and was immediately going to carry out her master's assignment. Xiao Xinyu tried to stay close to his beast. This was a rather tense moment for him, so he clearly needed support. Xiao Xinyu asked him to try his best to remain completely calm no matter what the situation was. The fiery red wolf, with burning eyes, literally radiates fury and unbridled power. His gaze is piercing, as if he sees through the one who dared to oppose him. The bright fiery glare emanating from his body is intertwined with dark, smoky shadows, making his appearance even more sinister and imposing. The scene is filled with tension and energy. Reality itself seems to thicken around the wolf, and it becomes clear to the viewer that it represents absolute power, uncontrollable rage, or a momentous threat. Meanwhile, Li Lu had created a protective barrier for the Black Fang. It was trying its best to control the wolf's rebirth. It was hard enough for her to hold it back. But she had absolutely no choice, and had an obligation to help the guy and his second beast. A bright aura filled the entire space around them. Xiao Xinyu was completely shocked by what was happening. He literally felt all the pain that his Black Fang was currently feeling. But at this moment, there was nothing he could do to help him. In order to pass this stage, one would have to be patient for a while, and then everything would fall into place. Xiao Xinyu was completely confident in his actions. He was determined to win the upcoming and not insignificant tournament. It was an indescribable spectacle. The guy was going to see a beast break through the void for the first time, and all of this was happening under the guidance of divine protection. He decided not to hesitate and check as soon as possible to see when the evolution of the Black Fang would actually end. A few minutes later, the system panel said that the evolution progress had already reached 30%. And following the first system panel, other panels began to appear, which were reporting the progress of the completion of the Black Fang's evolution at a great speed. After a few minutes, another system panel appeared in front of the guy and reported that the evolution progress had reached 99%. Xiao Xinyu couldn't understand what was happening now, and why the panel showed such a figure had his evolution process failed. This alarmed him very much. Just as suddenly, a Black Fang appeared out of nowhere, and it seems to definitely look different from before. Xiao Xinyu was absolutely delighted with this completion of the process. He had succeeded in accomplishing what he had planned, and his Black Fang appeared before him in its full perfection. It had finally completed its evolutionary stage.